Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m. Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Mortgage applications are soaring in the beginning of 2024. It's 6 o'clock. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. It could signal that lower rates are bringing potential homeowners back into the market. According to the Mortgage Bankers Association report, the news comes after a bad year for home affordability. In Stark County, former attorney William Sparks is facing charges after he reportedly stole more than $880,000 from his clients. 7 victims in all have been identified, with prosecutors saying the money was stolen between August of 2018 and November of 2020. And the Cleveland Ballet's Board of Directors has released a statement regarding their recently concluded investigation into allegations of leadership misconduct. In the statement, the board said they took action to address a pattern of intimidation and retaliation against dancers and staff, numerous reports of sexual misconduct on the part of the former CEO, and a toxic work culture. Sports and weather coming right up.
Attention all high school students and parents. We invite you to visit
In sports, Amari Cooper told the media yesterday that he's ready to play against the Texans in the Browns' first round wild card matchup Saturday. The receiver missed the last 2 games with a heel injury, so he'll be a welcome return. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Cloudy with the chance of rain and snow showers on and off today. Highs in the upper 30s. Winds could gust as high as 26 miles per hour, so hold on to your hat. Currently, we've got cloudy skies, 34 degrees in Cleveland, cloudy and 32 in Akron and Canton. Lorraine checks in, cloudy skies and 34 degrees.
It's time for your moron moment.
National Human Trafficking Awareness Day on January 11th raises awareness of the persistent issue of human trafficking. The horrific injustice of human trafficking can affect people of any race and background, and on this day, we are all called to fight human trafficking wherever it exists. Watch the film Sound of Freedom to see an example of the problem and how it is being addressed.
And that's your Moron Moment.
Moron.
And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 6:03 with Moody Radio News. I'm Ron Eastwood.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Happy Thursday. How you doing, guys?
Doing good.
I was thinking, do I say I'm happy?
Are you?
Yeah, I think I am.
Despite the man cold.
Yeah, it's lingering, but I'm fighting back.
Oh, yeah, you fight, Ron Eastwood. You fight. Daria, you're quiet. You all right?
I'm monitoring the live stream. I'm good.
Oh, that's
Doing
right.
her job.
She's doing work.
Yeah.
And she's doing great at it.
Yeah.
By the way, if you haven't done it yet, it's a lot of fun to see. All right, it sounds so vain. It's a lot of fun to see our faces. I mean, really. You'll be shocked at what I look like. Trust me, and you'll be, flabbergasted at how incredibly handsome and beautiful the rest of the team is. It's amazing. So text the word live to 440-546-2255. Text live to 440-546-2255. You can get your hands on the stream, and it will be lots of fun. What are you making
Hands
that face
on the
for?
stream. Eyes.
Get your eyes on the stream. That is correct. All right, so I want to jump in today. Here we go. Here's me
right.
jumping. Watch. Ready? I jumped. Okay. There's an organization that started to rank the loneliest cities in America.
Oh,
Ooh.
good.
We're going to start with a real upper here. This is going to be get your day going. The Cleveland metro area is among the loneliest cities in the country.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Aw.
In fact, we ranked, I believe, number 5.
Wow.
Yeah, we are the 5th loneliest city in America. Now, of course, as Cleveland.com reports, but you have to agree with the study's theory on what makes someone lonely,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
because they have to decide. Now, of course, if you're going to rank statistically cities on something as, nebulous as loneliness, you have to grab onto something tangible
Mm-hmm.
and say, okay, well, this is loneliness. This can show the world, this statistic can show the world what loneliness is. So I'm curious to know what you guys think what makes people in a city lonely, do you think? If you know the answer, say pass. But Ron, do you have any guesses on this? What makes a city lonely, do you think?
Wow, that is a good question.
It's a tough one, isn't it?
Is it being away from family?
It's kind of related to that. Would that make you? You just did that.
Yeah, I
Does that
just did
make you
that.
lonely in some sense?
Not yet, but I think it will.
Yeah, it's a weird thing where I've been away from family since 2008, when all my family is within a short distance of each other in the Twin Cities,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's so
Except you.
far away. Except me, yeah. And of course, if you're watching, Mom, I miss you, Mom. I'm trying not to cry right now. But I will say that I miss them,
Mm-hmm.
but there's been something really good for my marriage and my family to be on our own.
Mm-hmm.
I know it sounds silly, but I think it's true. Daria, you've been away from family before. What is that what makes you lonely, perhaps?
Not necessarily. Because when I was in Florida, I had a really good friend group. So even though I missed my family, I wouldn't say I was lonely. I don't know. I think it's just maybe lack of genuine connection, just in general. And we talked a while back about people don't have a third place, which is a place they can just go hang out. Maybe that's got something to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I talked to a single friend yesterday who's Lauren's age, 30. Whew, she's getting old.
Oh.
And
Yikes.
she's living a happy, vibrant life with deep connections with friends at church.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we would presume that the answer to loneliness, especially single folks, presume the answer to loneliness is marriage. And now here's the complicated thing to all of us married people. You don't have to answer this. Have you ever felt lonely in your marriage? And I'll raise my hand first. How about this? Sarah and I have been in seasons where we felt lonely in our marriage. We lacked the connection we both desired. We were still figuring each other out. You can be desperately lonely in marriage.
Oh, yeah.
Anyone want to comment? You don't have to. That's a big, deep, personal question.
I think for me, it wouldn't be seasons. I think there's like, a couple of days or something like that. And it's mostly my deepest personal friendships don't live near me.
Mhm.
And so I was lonely in needing something else, like something other than my husband, Eddie. I wanted connection with my girlfriends, and my two closest
Mhm.
friends aren't near me and haven't been for years.
And I would imagine there's some things that you don't want to, dare I say, burden Eddie with, your husband?
Yeah, that's true. Or there's, just like some things he may not understand of maybe if it's motherhood or the things you go through after becoming a mom, or, I just don't know. He can, try and listen and,
Right.
feel bad, but he can't understand.
Yeah, we fail miserably at understanding sometimes.
Yeah, it's actually I would call it a disorienting experience to have your wife be pregnant and go through, childbirth and all that. I know it hurts and all that, and it's really hard. I'm not I'm trying to diminish that, but it's like there's a powerlessness that goes with it for men. Like you can't do anything, you can't understand, and you have zero role once she's pregnant. Like there's nothing you can do to really make any difference of any like tangible sort. You can give her fluff her pillow or something like that, but there's nothing Eddie can do to make you feel more comfortable.
Sure.
And when she's giving birth, you can stand there and go, "Good job, you. Keep it up. Seems like it hurts. Breathe."
Seems like it hurts.
And then at some point during the process, most women will say, "Don't touch me."
Mm-hmm.
You're like, "Here, I'll hold her hand. This will help. I'll rub her arm. Don't touch my arm. Stop it."
But don't leave the room either.
And so in those situations, right? Yeah, he doesn't understand.
Yeah, so I was looking for connection elsewhere.
So what do you think? Any guesses on what particular statistic they could use to indicate Cleveland is the 5th loneliest city in America? Because this has to be, it can't be an intangible, like, well, there was a season of marriage where people all said they felt lonely.
Yeah. Do they use number of bars / adult entertainment venues as?
Oh.
But I don't know which way that would go. Would that mean you're lonely, so you go there? Because oftentimes you might go there with a group of friends.
Right.
As a place to, a third place.
Would they just ask people rank your loneliness or something like that?
Yeah. If I asked you that, though, how would you answer that, Daria?
I don't know.
Scale from 1 to 10. 10 is like, I can hardly make it to tomorrow. I'm so lonely. And 1 is like, oh, I have all the friends in the world.
Well, I guess it depends on the day too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. So that's a tough one. So what did they pick? I'm going to share with you what they picked, and then we're going to chat as a team just kind of about this idea and maybe how to combat loneliness, because there's plenty of people listening today who are like, yeah, I'm feeling pretty lonely. So what is the measure for this? Well, it's people living alone.
Okay.
So they're measuring loneliness based on how many people in a particular metropolitan area live alone. We'll look more in detail at the statistics themselves and talk about this as a team here in just a minute.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
619 WCRF Mornings with Brian. Guys, why haven't you gotten your ticket yet for the Walk Worthy Men's Conference? If you have, what's up, bro? What's up? I'm giving you a bro nod.
Yep.
You know what that is, Lauren?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good. Daria, you familiar?
I do.
Good. Okay, so if you haven't gotten your ticket yet and you want a bro nod from Ron, he's giving it right now. All you have to do is text the word WALK to 440-546-2255. Text WALK to 440-546-2255, and we'll send you a link where you can get your ticket. We've got a fabulous time. We've got some wonderful worship. Ron will be there.
Mm-hmm.
Lauren and Daria will be there, as far as I know. The only girls allowed.
That's right.
Kelly might be there. Might.
Oh, Kelly might be. So there's 3 girls that will be there, but they'll, not bother us, right?
Oh.
Be man stuff.
Yeah,
we won't interfere on your boys' club.
Okay, good.
Yeah, they'll probably have a separate room where they can crochet during the meeting.
And exchange doilies and things like
Right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, drink our tea.
Right.
That actually sounds like a great time to me.
Sounds nice.
Well, we're going to have Dr. Nick Gatsky, Dr. Mark Jobe. It's going to be amazing. Saturday, March 2nd, Canton Baptist Temple. Love the folks there. They do such a great job. Perfect room for the event. So, again, text WALK to 440-546-2255. All right, so the Cleveland metro area, according to a recent report, is among the loneliest cities in the country. And we ranked 5th among the loneliest cities in America. Now, friends in Pennsylvania, if you're pointing and laughing, guess who number 6 is? Pittsburgh.
Wow. So between our 2 metro areas, that's a lot of territory. Cleveland, Akron, Canton, Youngstown, all that.
And it all has to do with, they're measuring based on the number of residents living alone. Now, according to the report, about 78,000 Cleveland residents live alone, equaling about 46.2% of households in the city. That's an incredible number to me.
Yeah.
Cleveland also ranked 9th in the nation for the number of women living alone. There's 37,435 women living alone in Cleveland. When it came to men, the city came in 2nd place with 40,801 men living by themselves. The only other city in Ohio that ranked in the top 10 was Cincinnati. They're number 7, I guess. But we'll take that, Cincinnati. We demolished you.
We're more depressed.
Now, in general, how do we feel about the metric? I mean, I can't think of a better one personally, but living alone certainly could be a lonely experience.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, though.
Okay.
True.
Do tell.
So a good friend of mine is just moved out of her parents' house. She's living alone, and she absolutely loves it. But she's being intentional about making sure she's going places and having friends over regularly.
So for her, it's the social connections that keep her going.
Right.
I think about how I would have this tendency just in my personality if I lived alone to be more and more secluded.
Right.
And feel more and more sorry for myself about it. I mean, you're right. It doesn't automatically equal loneliness. Some people live alone and love it, like crazy, and they're living their best life, and they can't believe I have to deal with all the garbage I have to deal with my kids. And like you, Lauren, it's like, I can't imagine being up in the middle of the night like that woman. Whose voice was that? I don't even know.
I don't know.
So, Lauren, what do you think of the metric?
I was thinking along the same lines as Daria. I don't think living alone necessarily means you're lonely. Maybe that's just like what you choose to do. Or you don't want to live with your parents anymore and you're not married. And you can afford your own rent, so you don't need to live with someone.
And yet, what would be a better metric? If you're trying to measure loneliness with actual data,
Yeah.
I can't think of a better one.
Right. Because a lot of people, like me in my 20s, I went from group to group where we were sharing a house.
Yeah, me too.
And that wouldn't mean that you're not lonely.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You could still be lonely as you share a house, but you're just less broke.
Yeah, when I was in my undergraduate, I lived in a house with, was it 5 other guys? And that place was so disgusting. When I was dating Sarah, she at one point just wouldn't come inside anymore. She and I were making something in the kitchen, and one time one of the guys came in with a bucket full of fish he just caught, and he just like dumped them on the kitchen table while we were cooking dinner, and started cleaning them. And she was like, "That's gross." And then the next time somebody shot a deer, and he brought the leg inside into the kitchen.
That's Gross.
and just laid it on the table. And my wife's like, she was my girlfriend at the time, just goes like, gross, what are you doing? Just laying it on the table. He's like, oh, sorry, grabs a plate, puts the hip joint on a plate.
Ew.
And she's like, I'm never going in here again.
That's awful.
And she didn't. She'd wait outside, no matter how
Yeah,
cold
good
it
for
was.
her.
But I wasn't like living there going, oh, I just have such a fulfilling life here. No, I secluded myself in there because it was gross and those guys were weird. So
We had two people text in on similar thoughts of maybe we just have low cost of living here, and so people are able to afford living alone. High wages and low cost of living.
I mean, maybe. But we can't pretend like people aren't lonely either. I mean, loneliness exists.
Right.
So what are the ingredients to loneliness?
I just think loneliness is an emotion. It's not a physical state of being where like I'm alone, so I'm lonely.
But like lonely and lonely, or alone and lonely.
Yeah, they
like
have the same root word. Okay.
Right. There's like same letters in there.
Oh, wow.
doesn't that count for something?
No.
Well, I mean, okay, so, but Christians can't be lonely, right? Because they're saved. They got Jesus. Psh, they're fine.
They definitely can. I mean, we're still humans. We still experience that full range of emotions. We still get depressed. Just because we have Jesus doesn't mean we don't experience negative feelings.
Right. And so perhaps, okay, so we're giving this organization, I don't know, effort points?
Sure.
I guess it sounds like you guys are not buying into the idea that this is the best way to measure it. We can't come up with a better one.
Right.
Seems like Cleveland.com is skeptical as well. But I think loneliness is something worth chatting about for certain because
Oh, yeah.
I've seen reports from major periodicals that, psychologists, psychiatrists are all reporting an epidemic of loneliness in America. People are self-reporting that they're lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen these statistics everywhere. Now, here's the hard part, right? So if this were a hyper-spiritual radio station, which at least in the morning it's not, the rest of the day it's fine. It does that sometimes it doesn't. But I would say something like, well, don't forget, your best friend Jesus is there for you all the time. And now, here's Chris Tomlin. Right? And then we'd move on with our lives. But I think that's insincere. I think a lot of Christians, like we know, the Bible says things like Isaiah 41:10, fear not, for I'm with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Matthew 28:20, Jesus said, to teach them all that I observed, teach them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I'm with you always to the end of the age. See, Christians shouldn't be lonely. Jesus is with you.
Yeah.
But there's something, I think, difficult to achieve in the spiritual life, which is satisfaction being alone, maybe in a season where you don't have any friends, you just moved, and you can find yourself perfectly content with your faith in Christ. So, okay, I set up that target. You can just tear it down.
I mean, that's probably the goal, but that's a lot of work. That's a lot of effort and studying and meditating and praying to get there.
I would agree, but I think far too often in the church we turn, Jesus promised to be with us into some super antidote to loneliness.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. So I'm a very anxious person, and I've had so many people say, "Well, it's in the Bible, so just don't be." And I find that very offensive. I really do.
It's rude.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true, and it's rude. It can be both at the same time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because God also invented psychology. He also invented for people who have chemical imbalances in their brain. They invented medication. I mean, there's other things you can do, obviously. So what is perhaps the first step on the journey towards allowing our faith in Christ to be a fulfilling antidote to loneliness, at least begin to become that?
Well, you have to invest time into it. I'll say, I tend to be more apt to sit down and turn on the TV and put some mindless entertainment on rather than to say, oh, I've got some downtime. It'd be a great time to start working my way through the book of Ecclesiastes, like Dan Osborne suggested.
Yes.
And, there's time that's available that we don't choose to go spend it with Jesus, but instead we spend it with Netflix or Amazon or somebody like that.
Well, you know, in my spiritual formation program, I've realized too that we've created one way to be with Jesus, and it's reading the Bible. Now, reading the Bible is a good thing, but I'll be the edgy guy and say, I've learned that sometimes that's not going to be an antidote to loneliness for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I need to create a scenario in which I become clearly aware of God's presence with me.
Mm-hmm.
And you're nodding. So how do you do that?
Yeah, I don't think just reading the Bible alone is what's going to do it for me.
It's something that you should do and like to do.
Yes.
But if you're feeling lonely,
Yeah, it's not going to pull me out of that rut.
so what do you do?
I think for me, a lot of times what's helpful is actually talking about who God is and talking about what's true of him.
Like with somebody else?
Yes, with somebody else who can affirm it with me.
Huh.
So that I can remind myself what's true.
So is that with a friend or your husband? Or?
Yeah. Yeah, or my parents. Mm-hmm.
And so how does that start? You're like, hey, I'm feeling kind of down. I want to talk about the Lord with you to help remind me who he is. Like, how do you do it?
Yeah, it starts with myself. I'm thinking about it myself. And I'll either journal or just have some time alone to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I need to verbally process it afterwards. And then get that affirmation back from someone else.
And I like that. It's a good strategy.
Not affirmation, confirmation.
And see, people don't necessarily see that as, you know, a spiritual practice because we've reduced it in the church. Now, again, I'm not trying to diss you, Ron. I think what you said is absolutely true. We got to read the scripture. And sometimes that is the right thing to do. To do a search on the internet, even like Bible verses on loneliness or Bible verses on God's presence with us. But there's more ways to reflect on faith and grow in your walk with Jesus than just that. Daria, do you have a way where you are able to remind yourself of God's presence in your life?
No, I don't.
And that's okay. I think that's okay. I mean, we're all on a journey figuring this out. I've had some people I've talked to, the way they do it is they just like go on a walk in a metro park or something.
Yeah.
And they look around and they have to deliberately tell themselves, I'm going to soak in creation around me. For me, it's often it's reflecting on God's intervention in my life, like to take stock of where I am and where I could be, and sit around and go, okay, what has God provided for me? I'm feeling lonely. Like, how has He shown His presence here today? And I can do that, and then even reflecting on the path He's brought my family on. Now, there's been plenty of heartache and pain, but His fingerprints on our journey are undeniable.
Mm-hmm.
I could do the footprints in the sand bit, but we don't go to the beach very often, so I'm not going to do that. So if you're struggling with loneliness, I would say, yeah, certainly read the scriptures. But you got to spend time trying Lauren's strategy is really good, and it might get you kind of back out of that and more in deep relationship with Jesus. He wants not just your head, but He wants your heart. He wants you to love Him with your heart, soul, mind, and strength. So consider that. It's 6:33. We're going to pause for prayer, and we'll continue on here in just a minute.
bringing Northeast Ohio and Western Pennsylvania closer to Christ one conversation at a time. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio, Cleveland.
6:36. Join us live on YouTube and Facebook. You can do that by texting the word live to 440-546-2255, 440-546-2255. And we'll send you back a link on how to find it, or just search for us on YouTube. We're Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland. And you might be thinking, how'd you pull all that together? Daria.
Yep. The one-word answer.
Daria. Wave to the camera, Daria. Oh, she's the best. You can't have her. She works here.
Yep.
If you missed it, my daughter Grace came at the very end of the show yesterday. She was going to be here with us longer, but she was running late. And we had a great talk about like dating and just get an update on her life. And she's super cute. And you can see that you clipped that and put it on YouTube, right?
It's on YouTube.
You can go
look us up at Mornings with Brian.
If you're wondering where she gets the beauty, the answer is her mother. That's the answer.
She
to
really
that.
does look just like Sarah.
Do you think so?
I think so.
Yeah, it's true. And she was kind of dealing with the same problem we have, which is she said she started forgetting that she's on camera.
Oh.
And so she said she had her mouth open for a while. That really bothered her. Like, and then she said she had a mean look on her face at one point, looking at me.
Oh, well, welcome.
But she was just thinking,
welcome to my life.
That's Lauren's regular face. So it's okay. That's not true. You
It's
actually,
okay.
I've noticed when I look at it, you have a very pleasant disposition on camera.
Thanks.
So what's going on in real life then?
No, I think
This is real life.
I think, first of all, yeah, that's right, Daria. This is my real life.
I laughed really hard at my own joke.
I know you did. I think I have been over Zoom for 9 months. So I think
There you
just,
go.
She was pregnant too. And
Yeah, and it
you
was
were
hot.
almost 2 weeks overdue. Is that right?
Yes, I was 2 weeks overdue. You guys should have seen how large my feet were. So I was just a little uncomfortable.
Ron was talking about how big your feet were all the time. I was like,
Yeah.
Ron, dude, that seems kind of like over the top.
Will they ever shrink back to normal?
You're
They
like,
did, and it was shocking, Ron. Like
Yeah.
2 hours after birth, I looked at my feet and I was like, oh my gosh, there they are. Look at
as
them.
in, like they were wide? They didn't get longer.
No, they were thick with fluids.
I've never had that problem.
They
Can't
were like
really
baby
relate to
feet.
Aw, Lauren.
Just giant baby.
Did you take any good pictures so we could
Oh
post
yeah.
those?
Oh yeah, sure.
We should post your giant baby
Okay,
feet.
great. They were huge.
Daria's like,
She's
Ryan,
like,
no.
we're not posting people's.
I'm not sure I'm going to post that.
Okay. We want to shift gears a little bit. There was a story a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away that Ron and I chatted about together.
Okay.
Back in our first year broadcasting.
Oh,
Look
wow.
at us on memory lane. How's that
Yeah.
feel, Ron?
I'm tiptoeing through the tulips
It was back when his hair was blowing in the wind
Oh.
and
like
I-
Fabio.
I had no hair on my face. It was just amazing. And in 2015, it was a major year in the country in terms of morality and law. Why? Because in June of 2015, the Supreme Court, a lot of people were surprised by this, released their Obergefell decision that legalized same-sex marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the more interesting parts of that is the deciding vote was Justice Kennedy at the time. He was the swing vote appointed by President Reagan. And I don't think many people expected this to happen. And there was a lot of problems in the aftermath. But one of the highlights in terms of news about Christian response was from Ashland, Kentucky.
Oh, yes.
You remember this?
Oh, yeah.
There was a county clerk there named Kim Davis. And she got a lot of attention here. So let's take a quick peek at this. A Kentucky county clerk, this is back from 2015, has become a symbol of religious opposition to same-sex marriage, and she was jailed after defying a federal court order to issue licenses to gay couples. The clerk, Kim Davis of Rowan County, Kentucky, was ordered detained for contempt of court and later rejected a proposal to allow her deputies to process same-sex marriage licenses that could have prompted her release. So essentially, the court had said, listen, if you just let your deputies do it, you don't have to do it. Somebody has to do it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, no, I won't. I'll stay in jail for this. Instead, on the day when one of Miss Davis's lawyers said she would not retreat or modify her stance in a Supreme Court ruling legalizing same-sex marriage, Judge David L. Bunning of United States District Court secured commitments from 5 of Miss Davis' deputies to begin providing the licenses. At least 2 couples plan to seek marriage licenses after that. So as she sat in a jail cell, the judge was like, how about you guys? What would you like to do? And all of the assistant clerks were like, oh, okay, and we'll sign them. Thank you. I don't want to go to jail.
Sure.
And the judge said at the time, the court cannot condone the willful disobedience of its lawful issue order. So, like, you can't, in America, if a federal judge gives you an order, you have to follow it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, it's what they, like when you're watching I can use my gavel. I've got for you watching,
right.
I've got my gavel from Nate Zion, attorney Nate Zion. Like you're watching TV and in the court, they're like, hey, quiet down in the court. If you don't quiet down, I'm gonna put you in contempt of court.
Mm-hmm.
Sit down. Right? Isn't that how it works?
Right. Or have you expelled from the courtroom?
Oh, yeah. Law and order right there. You didn't do it. You could have done it.
Oh,
Ron.
I'm so caught up in the conversation.
Yeah, it's okay. And so, but it also, you're held in contempt if you refuse to follow the court's orders. Sit down.
I'm going to take that away from you, or you're going to be in court.
Lauren's court.
Managing producer Lauren. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. May I have another? So why bring all this up again? What are you doing, Brian? Why are you talking about this? Well, she's back in the news, Kim Davis. Here's what happened. Former Kentucky County Clerk Kim Davis must pay $260,000 in attorney fees and other expenses for her refusal to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples in 2015. United States District Judge David L. Bunning of Eastern District Court of Kentucky, recognize the name, same guy, by the way,
Okay.
issued a memorandum opinion and order last week awarding the plaintiffs in the case $246,026.40.
Okay.
I love when that happens. Can't we just round up, guy, or down in that case? I don't know. And what does that constitute? It constitutes attorney's fees. It's not cheap to get a lawyer. So essentially, she's being ordered to pay the attorney's fees of the couple that took her to court. Because it was one particular gay couple that did this. And an additional $14,058.30 in other expenses. Feels like Judge Judy. Remember sometimes she does that? She'd be like, you have to pay $1,000.26.
Yeah.
What are you doing? You're a liar.
And then she just gets up and walks away.
Sorry. Okay, so the court has reviewed the plaintiff's submissions and finds that the hours expended and the rates charged are reasonable. Now, her law firm, the Liberty Counsel, has been defending her and representing her in this years-long battle. They said that they're going to appeal the decision. They're going to keep things going. They noted that in December 2015, which was after she was put in jail, the governor at the time, Matt Bevin, issued an executive order granting religious exemptions to all clerks in the state. So from that point forward, you can get a religious exemption. But that didn't exist when she was taken to court.
And the exemption would mean that her deputies could sign it.
Right.
That would be my understanding.
Okay.
Because since the law of the land, according to the Supreme Court in the Obergefell decision, was that same-sex marriage was legalized, somebody has to do it.
Yeah.
Now, again, if you're just tuning in, or your new friend of Moody Radio, it should come as no surprise to you that Moody Bible Institute and Moody Radio subscribes to marriage as it's described in the Bible. One man, one woman for life is God's ideal, and how he expects it to be done. Okay, just want to make sure that's clear. And so Matt Staver from the Liberty Counsel said, this case is far from over. Because of Kim Davis, every clerk in Kentucky now has the freedom to serve as an elected official without compromising their religious convictions and conscience. This case has the potential to extend the same religious freedom protections beyond Kentucky and to overturn Obergefell v. Hodges, which was wrongly decided and should be overturned.
So has she been in jail this whole time?
No, she just served like 5 days.
Oh, okay.
But the court fees to take her to court were extensive.
Yeah.
Because attorneys aren't cheap.
Right.
And so these guys just sued her afterwards. Say, you got to pay my attorney fees. And since they won, the judge was like, okay, sure, yeah, you can do that.
That took a long time to come about.
That's how the justice system goes, though, right? It can just take forever to get those kind of things done. So now, this is back in the news. And there's much to discuss around this, but I think one of the more interesting things for us to chat about is now that we know that not only did she lose the case and serve 5 days in jail, she owes almost $300,000.
Mm-hmm.
To what extent did she make the right call back in 2015? I mean, some would view her as somewhat of like a martyr's the wrong word, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like she's experiencing civil disobedience, and she's doing it for a righteous cause. Others would say there may have been a better way for you to handle this, Kim. Since she's all over the news and there's talk about it, we'll talk about that here in just a minute.
You can listen to nonstop Christian music anytime, anywhere through your phone or mobile device.
.648 WCRF Mornings with Brian. We try to talk about today's issues from a biblical perspective as best as we can. As always, the final authority lands with the Lord.
Yeah.
So we're just having a conversation, an open and honest conversation as believers. But we encourage you to seek out the scriptures and spiritual counsel because we are not by any means the definitive answer on anything. Except maybe Ron and I and our preferences for donuts, but that's a whole different topic. So in this case, what we're chatting about, if you just tuned in, is Kim Davis, former county clerk in Kentucky, made headlines in 2015 after the Supreme Court or Obergefell decision legalizing same-sex marriage in this country. She was jailed for refusing to sign marriage licenses for gay couples as the county clerk because that was part of her job, is to sign marriage licenses. She went to jail, and now there's an order against her that now she has to pay about $260,000 to one of the couples she refused to sign information for. Now, which I think makes it even a bigger consequence, obviously, for her. And we as followers of Christ live in a society where continually it becomes, I think, more slowly than some want you to think, but it still becomes more complicated to be a follower of Christ in a society that doesn't line up with Christian morality anymore in a number of areas. But we have to seek wisdom in what was the right call. And there was strong division in Christians among when this came out.
Right.
A long time ago, whether she made the right call. Any initial thoughts on this from anybody? Because I know the ladies haven't had a chance to chat about this with us. So, well, let's start with Ron, since we've talked about this before. Do you remember what you said?
Yeah, I said she had an option that she chose not to take, and that was to resign her job because she could not, in good faith, perform her job as this job description was laid out by the state. She hung on to the job because she liked the paycheck she was getting. And perhaps, this is theory and conjecture, but perhaps she enjoyed the spotlight she was getting in all the national media and everyone asking her, "Oh, Kim, Can we do an interview with you? I think I think it was the court that gave her the option. Okay, if you don't want to sign it, have one of your deputies sign the description, which is in effect what happened with the religious exemption that the governor passed out later. Mm-hmm. It's the same effect. The one person doesn't want to do it, they can have their deputies do the signing, and that's fine. It all gets handled. The state law is upheld, and no one is bucking the system.
She would have told you that she was standing up for God's expectations of marriage. In fact, I read an account where she was on the stand, mm-hmm. and she was crying, just saying marriage is between a man and a woman. I can't do this. Like, she felt it violated her conscience.
Yeah. Tears on the stand aren't going to move me. I mean, people cry on the stand for all kinds of things.
What if I started crying now? Would that? No?
Probably not. Sorry.
That's all right.
But I really do think that the honorable thing for her to do would have been to step down. I don't think fighting against a law that has already been passed and saying, I am going to not obey this law because I don't agree with it. It doesn't line up with my understanding of Scripture. I don't think we're called to do that.
Well, now it gets more complicated, right? As we have Martin Luther King Jr. Day on Monday. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't read it yet, Letter from a Birmingham Jail is, I think, an essential read for any Christian.
Yeah.
Because he delineates what it means to honor government authority and when, as followers of Christ, we have permission from God, essentially, to not follow government authority. Because that was the essence of the civil rights movement, is there were Jim Crow laws that were unjust, that violated God's laws and God's idea of human mm-hmm. dignity. And so they peacefully violated those laws. And he justified it by talking about whenever man's laws violates God's laws, we're obligated to follow God's law.
And they were willing to go to jail for breaking those laws.
Right.
And Kim did the same thing. So I guess good for her. Go to jail. Don't complain about it. You just do your time.
And yet I think there's an essential difference here. And correct me if I'm wrong on this. Dr. King and his associates didn't have the choice to stop being black.
True.
She had a choice to stop being the county clerk. And she would just have to get a different job. I think that's a pretty important difference.
Okay. Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, she can choose to stop doing that job, so she's still following God's law. She could also have, from the beginning, choose to have her deputy sign it and is still following God's law.
Yeah, that's what gets me. Like, I commend her for standing up at great personal sacrifice for what she believed in.
It takes courage.
I commend her for that. Where she loses me is where she says, no, I refuse to allow my deputies to do it.
Yeah.
Because you alone are responsible to God. Other people's behavior,
mm-hmm.
God's not going to hold you accountable for what someone else is doing. You cannot control what someone else is doing. You can't control the fact a gay couple wants you to sign their license.
Mm-hmm.
You can't control the fact that the government's saying, well, somebody needs to sign that license. You can only control you.
Yeah, whether it was her or her deputies, somebody was going to sign it. Maybe it was her boss at the end of the day would have to sign it.
Or they'd go to another state.
Yeah, somebody's going to do it.
They would have gotten married regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and this is where, when you look at Scripture, I think one of the challenges we have as Christians, right, when these kind of things come up, is how do we respond and how much of a spectacle do we make?
Yeah.
And so in this case, I don't know what we do with it, but Romans 12:18. Romans 12 is my favorite chapter in the Bible. I love where Paul gives some very practical advice. And essentially 12:18 is, if possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Hebrews 12:14, strive for peace with everyone and for the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. Like as in when we make these stands and we make clear our position on things, we are Christ's ambassador. And so this is where I get to some of what you were saying, Ron, about she did make a spectacle.
Mm-hmm.
There's Mike Huckabee went to that area. There's big press conferences and cheering. And
some of that she might not have been able to help, because there are people who, are drawing the spotlight to themselves and they want to be like, waving their arms. Hey, look at me. I'm fighting for freedom. So they're going to pop up and, take their talking head show on the road to places like Kentucky where that's going on. So, sometimes she couldn't have helped the people all wanting to show up there and be like, I'm the big supporter. But yeah, there are other things she could have.
I mean, if I'm holding up the two options, which is A, what she did, and B, quietly resigning and maybe issue a statement that's peaceful and kind and gentle, filled with the fruits of the Holy Spirit, I'm not certain that it would have any, there'd be a very different outcome. And it would, if she would have just quietly resigned and made her position very clear, it wouldn't have gotten as big of a national spectacle, but she certainly wouldn't be paying almost $300,000 and she wouldn't have gone to jail.
Right.
And she wouldn't have violated God's conscience or her conscience in terms of God's expectations for her. Like when I read the Gospels and I see God's call for us and Jesus, the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, his expectations of us are that sometimes we get angry. Sometimes we, stand up for certain things, but we have to be filled with love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control. We're supposed to live a quiet life. Supposed to live at peace with everyone. And so if that's the case, it's like, I don't know. It seems to me, hindsight's 20/20, but it would have been maybe wiser for her just to quietly resign and make her position clear. Harder road, perhaps, in some respects. You wouldn't have income.
Yeah. But she also may have felt like that God was calling her to fight. For some reason, a lot of Christians fall into that, well, I have to fight for God, as if, he doesn't, have the strength to keep up the battle on his own without you.
Well, right. Like, it's a hard thing to process, but does God need us to fight for him?
No. He may want us to fight for him for our own benefit,
Yeah, it's hard, guys, in these situations, but even the idea of being God's representative, her strategy, while she did stand for what she felt her conscience led her to do, really what somebody on the outside could observe, couldn't it be something like, wow, those Christians sure hate gay people.
Exactly.
They really want to stop gay people from being happy. That's their goal in life. And that's not the gospel. Could she have sent a more gentle message if she had just resigned quietly? Yeah, probably. Poke holes in this. I'm just talking about it. Daria, poke holes.
I think you're onto something, and you're right. This is hard, and it's one of those I'm a little hesitant to comment on because I don't know what's going on between her and God. I don't know what God told her quietly or, maybe appeared to her in a dream or something. I don't know.
And we need to extend her grace,
right,
as a sister in the Lord. And we're not trying to be harsh. We're just talking about a story that everybody's talking about. Go ahead. Sorry.
But I just don't know is what it comes down to.
Yeah. And I think anyone who claims they have a definitive answer to that maybe needs some humility. Like I'm just saying at the surface, this is where my analysis would lead me. But what would I do in that circumstance? I hope I never have to find out.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on this, Lauren?
No, it's complicated. I think she had some options of what to do, and maybe the one she chose is not the one that I would choose. It's not the one that I feel is what God would call me to do, and to be kind and gentle.
Yeah,
But also, I think there's people, I think God equips different people with different things and different callings, and maybe her calling is to fight more outwardly and to make her stance and her faith known and what she believes to be right in the eyes of God more outwardly. I think some people are built for that and called to that, and some others are not.
Yeah, and I just still go, I don't want to raise my hand and yell as loud as I can all the things I'm against because Jesus. I want to be able to say something like quietly, boy, I'm sorry, I just can't do that because I love Jesus. But I know you'll figure out a way to do it on your own. I'm gonna move along. Like I want to make sure the gospel still seems like good news. Yeah. Not that we're proclaiming our againstness all the time.
Yeah,
as a friend of mine calls it.
I think she would have made an impact with the people right around her, maybe to her deputies, to her boss, to her colleagues, if she would have done it that way. Like, hey, actually, I can't sign this. So either one of you can sign it or I'm going to have to leave.
Yeah.
If you're going to force me to sign it, I'm going to have to leave, or one of you can just sign it.
And that would have left a better impression. Like, wow, she didn't get angry. She just, because she loves her God so much, she's risking unemployment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, sometimes I wish it wasn't true, but we don't ever get a pass on the fruits of the Spirit to display love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, and self-control. We don't get a pass. We have to, as Peter talked about, be ready to give an answer with gentleness and respect.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to make sure that we're proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ in a real clear, honest way. Not that we don't disagree with things, but I think we're going to have to come to terms in this country with how we respond to situations like this in a way that doesn't dishonor the Lord and can point to the good news, but also make sure we're following the Lord's expectations of us.
Yeah, we had someone comment, why would she have to resign? Jesus flipped over money tables and he made a whip to chase out the cattle. But the problem with the flipping over money tables is that was people who were using God's house, people who said that they were followers of God, using his house inappropriately. This is a different people group that we're supposed to be a witness to.
Right. And I think people honestly use this passage as kind of a crutch. Like, God is God. Jesus is God. He can do whatever he wants. He can get angry. I think we can't use that as permission to just go on the attack on every time someone comes up against us.
Mm.
And, here's the challenge, too, to think about, because when the early church was doing its thing and growing, I mean, homosexuality was not only legal in ancient Rome until about, 533. It was perfectly legal until 533 when Emperor Justinian made it illegal. Prior to that, it was not only legal, it was like no
rampant.
big deal.
Yeah.
In fact, multiple Roman emperors were openly homosexual.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to ask ourselves in that case, so what did Paul and the guys do? Down with Caesar! No, what they did is they focused on loving Jesus and spreading the gospel of salvation from sins through the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. And they lived in that culture. And it was difficult, but they did it. But that's just what we think. Follow your own conscience, search the scriptures. Don't listen to us. Come up with your own conclusion and seek the Lord. We got to be ready for these kind of things. It's 7:03, time to get to Ron's news. Plus, we got much more to come. And don't worry, Dave Szfranski is back. He'll be here from 8 to 9 today answering your financial questions at 440-546-2255.
More
Experts who identify and manage global risks say there's a high chance of a global catastrophe happening within a decade. It's 7:04. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. The World Economic Forum survey shows nearly two-thirds of respondents expect a higher chance of disaster in the next 10 years, and about 30% expect the same in the next 2 years. The report cites risks from misinformation, a potential recession, and extreme weather events. A man is lucky to be alive after a tree fell onto his trailer in Summit County this week, leaving him trapped inside. It took crews nearly an hour to cut through the tree to free the trapped man, who escaped with non-life-threatening injuries. And the operating license of a Parma Heights daycare center has been suspended as a man is facing charges after he allegedly raped one of its enrollees. 20-year-old Connor Walker allegedly took pictures and video while doing that to a 2-year-old child. I'll be right back with sports and weather. In sports, Amari Cooper told the media yesterday that he's ready to play against the Texans in the Browns' first-round wild card matchup Saturday at 4:30 p.m. The receiver missed the last 2 games with a heel injury. He'll be a welcome addition. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Cloudy with a chance of rain and snow showers. Highs in the upper 30s. Winds could gust as high as 26 miles per hour. At last check, we had cloudy skies and 34 degrees in Cleveland. Some light snow actually now being reported. Akron, Canton, flurries in 32, light snow and 33 degrees in Lorraine, Elyria.
It's time for your moron moment.
National Human Trafficking Awareness Day on January 11th raises awareness of the persistent issue of human trafficking. The horrific injustice of human trafficking can affect people of any race and background. And on this day, we are all called to fight human trafficking wherever it exists. Watch the film Sound of Freedom to see an example of the problem and how it is being addressed.
And that's your moron moment.
Moron.
And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 7:07 with Moody Radio News. I'm Ron Eastwood.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
7:11, WCRF Mornings with Brian. And do you suffer from FOMO, fear of missing out? Well, if you're... Do you?
Yeah, sometimes.
I really don't very much. Sometimes. For me, it's the vacation thing. If somebody's going to the beach like twice a year, I'm like, well, that's not fair.
Yeah, that is really uncool.
I repent. Fine, I repent. But I don't want you to have FOMO. That's the thing. And so, guys, Saturday, March 2nd, you will have FOMO if you're not at Canton Baptist Temple.
Right, because you will miss out.
100%
It's just a fact.
Yep. And we'll talk about it, and you'll feel like you missed out on something because you did. And we're not sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
I have already scheduled Pastor Scott to be in the Monday afterwards to talk about it.
Right, because we're going to do our best to get it live streamed into the prison
right.
again this year.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of guys got saved in that prison. A bunch of guys got saved at the event.
Yeah, that was cool.
But maybe that sounds boring to you. Fine, miss out then. If it sounds interesting, yeah, you bring a neighbor, bring a friend, a relative. I guarantee you'll hear the gospel message from Dr. Mark Jobe. Mm-hmm. He doesn't get off of the platform without making sure it's clear. Plus, we'll have Dr. Nick Gatsky preaching. It's going to be amazing. You're going to love it. Get your tickets today. Text WALK to 440-546-2255. Text WALK to 440-546-2255. Get your tickets, and we'll all be hanging out. K. So, found a funny article from boardpanda.com, which I believe is Ron's favorite website.
I've enjoyed the things I've seen from it.
He's always like, hey, guys, you see the latest on Board Panda? No, he doesn't ever say that. I love the name of it, though.
Yeah.
Aren't pandas always bored? It seems like
They
they
look
are.
like that.
Yeah.
They're like, "Wah, I'm a big lump eating a leaf."
They're so unamused.
Yeah. They're like, whatever, guys. I'm busy. I'm eating right here with my big belly. So anyway, there was a post where they highlighted somebody in Reddit wanted to hear what other people thought about stereotypes about Americans from people outside of America.
Oh, good.
I'm sick of hearing the stereotype about Americans. Sick of it.
Mm-hmm.
So what are they? Here's one of them. The stereotype that we're all the screaming loudmouth Karen tourists when we visit other countries that yell, "Why don't you speak English?"
Right. The ugly American.
Believe me, we hate those people too. They said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you guys traveled overseas, some of you?
Yeah.
Those people exist.
Mm-hmm.
I'll add a twist to this, though. We still think it's okay to, not in a Karen way, but to women in foreign countries to go, "Hey, do you speak English?" That's rude. It's my opinion that's very rude. You know what you should do? Learn one phrase in a language. And it's asking them in their language if they speak English. Otherwise, you're rude.
When I was in Italy, I actually did make a real effort to learn the language. I was pretty proficient when I was there. So I would like ask Italians like basic questions in Italian, and they would respond in English. I'm like, oh, okay. Apparently
Makes
it's
you feel
that
like
bad.
a loser.
But it's respectful, Daria.
Yes, that was very respectful.
Speak to us in Italian.
I've lost it. It's been too long.
Do you think that's true, Ron? All of it's gone? I don't think so.
Probably not. I bet
check.
there's some there.
Incorrect. Fine, Daria. Don't do any of it. I love Italian. It's can I do any of it?
Do any of what?
Italian.
I don't know.
I'm trying to remember. I knew some phrases.
Is Vini Vidi Vici Italian or is that Latin?
I don't know.
That's amore.
Bueno.
Okay. On the next one, let me flip pages because some of these are really dumb. Some of them are great. A lot of Eastern Europeans think Americans are all rich. Meanwhile, the person wrote, the Americans are trying to budget for toast and trim their one toenail infection to avoid going to the hospital.
Sick.
Accurate.
People do think we're all rich, and that's totally not true.
Yeah.
It's just Ron.
And that we all wear cowboy hats and talk with a drawl.
Yeah, one of my biggest disappointments, going to Dallas, Texas for the first time, no one's wearing a 10-gallon hat.
Aw.
Well, that's a little dramatic. 10-gallon hat. Were they wearing regular cowboy hats?
No, nobody. I'm like, did you guys not know I'm coming? It's Dallas, Texas.
And then Jeff Bezos shows up with a 20-gallon hat.
You remember when he did that? He took people to outer space. You got to go look at that. What was that thing called? The Blue Origin? Or
Yeah, I believe so.
Jeff
And
Bezos
he wore
went on there.
20-gallon hat?
He goes to the press conference, and he's wearing almost like one of those ones you buy at like a sporting event. That's a giant cowboy hat that flops around. Ron and I saw it. We were like, who's that guy in the cowboy hat? He looks ridiculous. It was Jeff Bezos back from outer space. Yeah.
He's the most interesting person in the world.
Yes. He's very interesting. Okay, next one. Another myth about America that we don't like, that people have about us. This person says, there's a lot more important ones, but I constantly hear that we all wear shoes in the house.
Well,
No one I know hangs out around the house in shoes.
I was on a meeting with someone yesterday, and they literally were talking about how they got slippers for Christmas because she likes to wear shoes around the house, and her husband was getting mad at her.
Yeah, I have house Crocs.
Oh, I have house Crocs too.
But I don't, this person's saying that nobody wears shoes in the house. Well, that's not true.
That's not true. My dad and my mom love wearing shoes around the house. Shout out. It's okay, you guys.
And it's Gigi and Pop. So if I
Gigi and
went to
Pop's.
Gigi and Pop's house,
There's shoes in the house.
they're like, hey, hey, should I take my shoes off?
No, it's fine.
Yeah. Ron, do you wear shoes in the house?
No, I have socks, so I just kick off my shoes and there I
No,
go.
I wear socks.
I bet Daria makes everyone take their shoes off.
I really don't care.
Wow. Well, this person's wrong.
I've started thinking about having this is what they do in Europe is they have a basket of slippers at the front. I've started thinking about doing that. Making people take off their shoes, but then it's okay, I have slippers you can wear.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I want my feet and someone else's feet sweat.
They're not. It's just what guests wear. It's not like the ones I would wear all the time.
Well, right, but another guest wore it. How do I know what that nasty
Well,
person...
are you
that
wearing
came-
socks like Ron?
Well, yeah. Oh, so socks don't get wet with sweat?
Not when you're just in my house for a little while.
I don't know. Maybe you keep it hot in there.
No.
Maybe this person just got back from working out and their sweat has soaked into your house slippers.
That's disgusting. Don't say
If
that.
your feet are sweating that much when you're working out, you're doing something wrong.
I don't know. I don't want to share slippers, okay?
Okay.
Oh, then don't go to Europe. Don't go to someone's house.
Oh, wow.
I'm just telling you, that's what they do.
Okay, fine. 7:18, time to take a quick break here. When we come back from the break, more fun is to be had. In fact, the latest edition of Pretend Experts. We're in show business, people. Do you not know this?
Please.
There's no business like show business. And so since we're in show business, we pretend that actually means business, so we get to evaluate business. So that's what we're going to do because we're in the biz.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
They look at business decisions and impose their positions. Without a doubt, they know what they're talking about. It's time for Pretend Experts.
Oh, I love this. Even when my mic's off. All right, we got a couple of stories. We're in the biz, people, so let's evaluate these. First one goes to Chicago. Chicago, headquarters of McDonald's. McDonald's is bringing back a special burger after 4 years.
Okay.
They like to do
not
that.
the McRib.
No, it's not the McRib where they're like, we'll never bring it back. And then, just kidding, next year it's back. Every year it's back. And it's shaped like ribs, but it's not at all.
It's a mystery meat.
Kind of squidgy.
Because if it was actually ribs, like you'd have to bite the bone, and no one does that. Okay, so here we go. Here's what they're bringing back. They're going to bring back the Double Big Mac.
Isn't a Big Mac big enough?
And it starts January 24th, so it's coming up soon. It features 4 beef patties instead of 2.
Wow.
What's the price? Do they have that on there?
It's sold. It doesn't say.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so it's. How would you even get your mouth around that?
You know, here's what I'm thinking. Get one and you split it for 2.
Oh.
So, like, what? You share it with somebody?
Yeah.
You
If
only have
it's-
3 buns, though. That's the problem.
Who cares?
Just use lettuce as the other. Like,
Yeah.
pretend like you're half gluten-free
Yeah,
or something.
exactly. a lettuce bun, lettuce wrap.
And my primary problem with the regular Big Mac, who said I'd want another bun in there?
Well, it soaks up the juice.
Is that your theory?
I don't know. I've never had a Big Mac, but
I haven't either, because like when I want
So
a
what do we know?
burger, I want the primary taste to be the meat and the sauce and all that. You think I want extra bread in there? The bread just holds the meat.
Mm-hmm.
You're agreeing with this?
Maybe the bread is there to provide friction so the juicy meat doesn't slide apart.
Oh, slip around.
Well, it's already tall enough, though. Put in 2 more pieces of meat. I mean,
Yeah,
I
could
wouldn't
not.
eat for a week after that.
Yeah, you'd feel awful with all that meat in your belly.
Meanwhile, is that
Meat.
Daria ordering a double Big Mac right now? Daria, it's not out until the 24th.
It's not a bad decision, but this is why America is one of the most overweight countries on the planet.
But it sounds like Miss Daria over there is like, well, it's not a bad move, but
Oh, they're
it
gonna
makes us
sell them.
chubby.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
people
not
are gonna
gonna
eat it.
I'm not gonna eat it.
Yeah.
People will eat it.
Oh, yeah.
What was that documentary called where he ate McDonald's all?
Super size me.
Supersize
Yeah,
me.
wow.
That was a bad decision
I
on his
watched that in
part.
health class.
Did you?
Yeah.
What happened
Oh,
to
yeah.
him?
What happened to him?
Spoiler alert, by the way.
It was like over 15 years ago that I watched it.
Yeah.
But
He made it. Like
he
lived.
lived.
He survived.
His health
Yeah.
was in decline
Yeah.
when they
Okay.
checked him up again.
All aspects of his health.
Yeah.
So are we? We're kind of rejecting this decision by McDonald's. Is
No, I
that
think
correct?
it's fine. They can do whatever they want.
It's a good business decision.
Oh wow.
I hope people aren't buying them every day.
Yeah. But we personally say, no, we wouldn't take
Yes.
advantage of this.
That's right.
You see how nuanced we are as business professionals? So I'm going to, if I understand your position, we're approving this decision.
Yes.
Okay, we just did it. Next, we go to Sacramento, California.
Okay.
Now, if you were in Sacramento, California, I've been there, beautiful town.
Mm-hmm.
Turn on a faucet, maybe your hotel room or someone's house. You just picture to yourself, mountain water. Just glacial water, not glacial, but I mean, where do you picture your water's coming from in California when you turn on the spigot?
I lived in California. Believe me, I didn't want to know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the city reservoir.
Yeah.
Well, you know, they've had water shortages, so they've haven't they like diverged the Colorado River, and then they've
Yeah.
got Lake
They take
something.
some-
They pipe it in from out of state because
Yeah.
they don't have any.
They got mountains though, so I mean, you know, maybe you could picture in your head to make yourself feel better. Oh, it's melting snow on the mountaintops.
From the Sierra Nevadas.
Actually, no, they struggle with water, so they have a brand new thing they've decided to do. They're going to recycle water from shower drains and flush toilets.
Oh.
I mean,
no.
they clean it. That's what a water sanitation
Yeah.
department does. There is the exact same amount of water that currently on the planet that has always been here. That's how it works. It gets recycled.
I know where we're going to
You're
divert
right.
our toilet water into someone's office. It's going to be This one.
Joke's on you. I don't have an office. I have a desk in the corner by your office.
Yeah, I guess that would impact me. Apparently, recycled wastewater is not new to the Golden State. It's been used to make ice skating rinks, to make snow on ski resorts, and goes on farms for crop irrigation. But the process is very stringent and apparently removes pathogens and viruses. But now when you flush in California, you might be like, quick, turn on the water. I'm thirsty. It's like all coming back. So evaluate.
I just feel like maybe just don't tell anybody you're doing that.
Right.
Do it. That's fine. Just don't tell anybody because I don't want to know.
Daria?
I'm surprised they weren't already doing that. When I lived there, you were not allowed to do your laundry between certain hours.
Oh, because like drought
state
and stuff?
mandated?
Yeah. Like you could get in trouble for it.
Oh, wow.
Ron?
I think they have to look for alternatives, and they might as well pursue this, but I'm like Lauren, I don't want to know.
Yeah, don't tell
A
me.
lot of nuance today in our business
Don't
decisions.
tell me.
But it sounds like we're yet again approving this.
Yeah.
We're in a good mood today. Lauren wants your shower water in her faucet.
That's not what I said.
I thought that's what you said. Okay, next one. There's somebody who's using a therapy animal to help out passengers in Portland at the airport. People get stressed out. These particular therapy animals responded to an emergency after a plane was delayed, and they're there to help make people feel happy and calm. Any guesses on the type of animal that is the therapy animal? Apparently very successful in Portland's airport.
Is it a pig? No?
Nope.
A donkey.
Good idea. My donkey brings me much comfort and relaxation.
He wasn't very nice to me, so.
Well, maybe you did something. That's why I tried to bite
No,
you.
he tried to bite my belly. Absolutely not.
Well, it looked like something was wrong, you know? Like, what's wrong with her belly? Leave him alone. He's just a donkey.
Was it? Oh gosh,
Puppies?
is it some type of bird?
Puppies? No, not a bird. They are therapy llamas.
I've seen
I love
those.
that.
They're so cute.
I'm going right now.
Alpacas are cute. Are you sure you weren't buying alpaca? You know what llamas do to you if they don't like you?
They spit on you.
They spit on.
right?
I've been spit at by a llama.
Well, it's better than your belly being bitten by a donkey.
I guess that's true. So you like this? You want
Heck yeah.
llamas
That's so fun.
escorted throughout an airport to bring people comfort and
Yes,
joy?
I would scratch its long neck.
Better than a lot of other things I've seen in an airport.
I
No.
would call it Dalai Lama.
Wow, we liked all of them this time. I thought you guys would hate that. Okay, bring on the spitting in Portland.
Come on.
Spit on Lauren, she'd like that.
It's fine.
Okay, 7:32, time for a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk politics from a faith perspective with our good friend, Dr. Mark Caleb Smith of Cedarville University. 7:35 WCRF Mornings with Brian. When we all kind of let the dust settle after the new year, a bunch of us on our team went, oh, it's a presidential election year. Oh, no. Now, just to make it blatantly clear, our next guest is the same. We are a nonpartisan organization. We're not interested in being partisan. We're not going to tell you to vote for. We don't do all that. Jesus is king around here, and he's what we're most concerned about. But we do want to talk about today's issues from a biblical perspective. And so we're going to have to very cautiously and carefully talk about political things and an election year. And let me just tell you, if you're going to be listening for some secret hints about what we really think, you're wasting your time because we're just not interested in that kind of thing at all. So off we go with that caveat. It was kind of aggressive, though. Sorry. Our next guest, you know him, you love him. He is like in charge of almost everything at Cedarville University, but particularly the School of Arts and Humanities. Dr. Mark Caleb Smith, welcome back.
It's really good to be with you. I like aggressive Brian. That's good.
but you should dial me back. And I kind of spoke for you there. So, like, okay, in a more gentle fashion, how do you teach at a Christian college? How do you approach politics? What's your philosophy?
My approach to politics is we start with Scripture. We don't start with a party. We don't start with an ideology. We don't start with your patriotism. There's nothing wrong with any of those things, but we try to start with Scripture, and we work our way to those other things. And so I think the temptation that we all have is to sort of start with something else and then try to impose it onto Scripture. Well, we try to start with Scripture when it's appropriate, and then we work into how we view other kinds of political reality. And I think it's a good place to begin, but it does create some discomfort sometimes because people may have some assumptions challenged, but that's okay.
Exactly what I should have said right there. That was it. Thank you for dialing me back. All right, we have a couple of things we want to talk about today political-wise. One of them is, as much as I live now in the promised land of America, the state of Ohio, I'm from Minnesota, and I know about Iowa. I've been to Iowa, quite frankly, super boring, and yet they get to kind of set the tone for the primaries. Why do they get so much attention, the Iowa caucuses? That seems weird.
It really is an accident of history. I mean, what else could explain it? Why would someone throw a dart at a map and say, hey, let's let Iowa vote first? I mean,
yeah, they'd want to rethrow the dart if that actually happened.
This traces back to we don't have to get too far into the weeds here, but in 1968, there was a convention in Chicago, the Democratic Party's national convention. They had their presidential nomination process, and it was a complete disaster. There was violence inside the hall. There was violence outside the hall. There was a police riot. We were in the midst of civil rights protests. We're in the midst of Vietnam War protests. It's just a complete meltdown. And so they decided they needed to reform the way that they chose presidential nominees because of that experience. And they went to kind of the system we have now, where each state has a caucus or a primary, and then those officially choose delegates who then officially go to the national convention, and then they cast their ballots as delegates. That wasn't always the case, and so after 1968, the parties reformed their process. It just so happened that Iowa was the first one on the calendar, and they had been for a while, and Iowa kind of has held that position jealously. They've passed laws that have said if other states move their calendars, Iowa's will by default move regardless. And so
that sounds aggressive.
They're pretty proud of their position, and so really it's just the accident of history. And so I'm not sure that it's good, frankly. I think Iowa's not representative of the country. Iowa's way more rural. It's way more agricultural. As much as I love Christians, it's also way more Christian than much of the rest of the country. And so you end up with a kind of skewed representation in Iowa, which I think has maybe not always a healthy effect on the rest of the nomination process.
Now, to what extent is the nominee out of Iowa almost inevitable to be a party nominee?
And I guess that's a good argument in favor of Iowa is that it doesn't predict anything necessarily. Think in the past we've seen luminaries like Rick Santorum, Mike Huckabee, and Ted Cruz win the Iowa caucuses and then go on to sputter and flame out in the Republican Party process after Iowa. And so, winning Iowa is important, maybe, but it certainly doesn't guarantee any kind of an outcome necessarily.
And now you're going to have to talk me down on this one, because I see this phenomena almost every 4 years, is that suddenly in Iowa, everybody shows up, all the candidates, just all of them, and even the ones that nobody thinks is going to make it. And they all suddenly become evangelicals, and they're talking about Jesus. Are they preaching? Like, what's going on here?
Oh boy, yeah, you've touched on something pretty critical here. Iowa is disproportionately evangelical. I think if we look at it by percentage, has about 10 percentage points more Christian/evangelical than the average state in the United States. And that's just as a general population. Then you look at the Republican Party in Iowa, which is even more disproportionately evangelical Christian. And so you start to understand why candidates begin to use that sort of language in that context. And so you go to a state fair in Iowa, a candidate starts talking, and you feel like you might be in the middle of a sermon at that point. And and I'll just be really candid with you, I'm all for candidates sharing their faith. I'm fine with them talking about their faith and their background and how it influences the way they approach politics. But I think as believers, we need to be really critical and make sure this is an authentic representation of faith, because the temptations are so high to just say whatever needs to be said so that people hear the magic words and then want to support you. Well, we should obviously measure them against their past and measure them against their actions and make sure that we have some integrity in this process of talking about your faith. And so, if I'm candid about it, I think Republican voters sometimes struggle with this because the language is so powerful that they kind of turn off the critical part of their brain at that point and say, yeah, this person's a believer just like I am.
And perhaps it's just hope, right? I mean, people are blinded by a hope, which sounds nice, but you're saying we really have to be careful and evaluate these things.
And I think we do. And I think, I mean, for me, certainly I want a candidate to have strong faith. That would be my ideal. But I also understand having strong faith is one factor, but that doesn't guarantee that this person is the best candidate. So I'm trying to sort of navigate all these things together, and faith matters there. And I want to take it seriously, and I want the candidates to take it seriously, but I don't want it to be overwhelming. And so again, the temptation is just to use it to sort of manipulate voters and not have a true representation of the self.
So now, currently, we can start with the Republican Party. What seems to be the group of names that are at the moment rising to the top?
And so since we're talking about the Republican nomination, we could look at national polls, obviously, but national polls really don't matter at this point because we're so far away. So we really should only be looking at state polling to get a handle on what's happening. And in Iowa, Donald Trump is in a pretty commanding position. According to sort of an aggregate of polls, sort of an average of polling, recent polling, he's around 50% of the vote if the polls are accurate. So he's got about half of the voters locked up, it seems. Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley are sort of jockeying for position number 2. DeSantis has been ahead of her for quite a while, but now she's been surging in Iowa. And it seems like they're going to be battling it out for number 2. Now, there are people who believe that maybe Trump will not win. They think maybe the polling is skewed. Maybe there's bad weather in Iowa. Maybe that will affect turnout a little bit, and we'll see something of a surprise. But this polling lead is rather large. And if he ends up losing with this kind of a lead, it would be shocking in a lot of ways.
Now, if we look at the Democratic side, if I understand things correctly, there's no one challenging Joe Biden running for a second term.
That's correct, but the Democrats are, they've had someone challenge him, but it isn't really a meaningful challenge that's really drawing any kind of significant, traction. But the Democrats are going through their own bit of drama. Biden has an awful lot of political capital invested in South Carolina. He's very popular generally, although he's struggling a bit now amongst African-American voters. And if you remember back in 2020, South Carolina kind of nailed down Biden's support before he went on to do really well at Super Tuesday and kind of coast to the nomination after that. So he's made an effort to pull South Carolina up in the calendar against the wishes of Iowa and New Hampshire. And so we have a bit of drama in the Democratic Party right now about really who's first and why they're first. And so, there are contests taking place, but there are arguments about what's official and what's not official. And so, there's nothing more delicious than watching partisans argue amongst themselves, and that's what's happening right now in the Democratic Party.
All right, at 7:45, our guest is Dr. Mark Caleb Smith from Cedarville University, where he's Dean of the School of Arts and Humanities and Professor of Political Science and Director of the Center for Political Studies. Wow, man, you're busy. You need a break, bro.
In theory, I just had one. But
That's true. Okay, so when we come back from this break, we'll keep talking about election year politics through the faith lens. And in this case, I think it's worth talking about an amendment that most Americans don't even know what it is. If I said to you 14th Amendment, most people would go, Can we talk about the first one? But the 14th Amendment could be a big storyline in this election year. What is it? Why do we have it? How will it affect the election? Could it? We'll talk with Dr. Smith about that in a minute. (7:47). Don't forget you can watch the show on YouTube. Just text the word live to 440-546-2255, 440-546-2255. You can see the whole thing. You can see me talking right now, and then right next to me on the screen, a picture of a handsome man, our current guest. He is Professor of Political Science at Cedarville University, Dr. Mark Caleb Smith. You didn't even know that, probably, that you got a still photo right there.
I stole your picture off the internet.
Yeah, I was not informed there'd be any pictures involved. So
you look
hopefully
good.
It's at least a positive representation because, there's a big range available. So hopefully you chose a good one.
You got a green background. You got like a nice plaid bow tie. You look good.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Sounds like a typical day. He's looking good. Okay, now we got to talk about an amendment to the Constitution that I would venture to guess most Americans have never heard of and may not even know what it is. It's the 14th Amendment. So let's start this way. Take us back in history. When did this become an idea, and why did it become an idea?
The 14th Amendment in general?
Yeah.
Or the 14th Amendment. So the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were all passed in the aftermath of the Civil War. And they were put in place as sort of a way to move us past the issues of the Civil War and to hopefully put us on a better track in terms of race relations and other things related to the Civil War. And, if you know your American history, you obviously know to some degree that failed spectacularly because it isn't as if race relations were solved in 1868. We obviously had significant problems, but in other ways they did succeed pretty admirably as well. But they abolished slavery. They guaranteed the right to vote regardless of color. And also the 14th Amendment has really become the most important of them in terms of substantive constitutional law. It does a lot of things, but it guarantees the equal protection of the law at the state level. It guarantees due process at the state level for state-level citizens. And it gets rid of the three-fifths compromise. It does other things. So it's a massive amendment by constitutional standards. But it also has this one thing that we're getting ready to talk about. Section 3 has this language about potentially barring people from serving in the office of the federal government if they engaged in insurrection in the past. Now, you can imagine the context in which this was written is the Civil War, and they're trying to deal with the reality that there were still tens and tens of thousands of former Confederate soldiers who were interested in politics, how are we going to deal with this issue that they were actively engaged in rebellion, but still may be elected into Congress from the South? And so this Section 3 here is part of that effort.
I think it also affected judges, right? Because there would have been judges in the Confederacy that were on like federal benches that were just suddenly back in them in terms of the Union.
Yeah, no, it affected anyone who had taken an oath to support the Constitution of the United States previously and then engaged in, as language it says, engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the United States after taking that oath. And so it would have included any officer potentially that had sworn an oath to the Constitution previously.
So essentially, what did it set forth as the precedent? Like, what did they do at that time with people who had served the Confederacy and had taken an oath of office?
So this language here bars them from serving. It says, no person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state if you've previously taken an oath and then engaged in insurrection or rebellion. So it eliminates them from federal service, at least in theory. However, it also does say here that Congress can, by a two-thirds vote, remove this disability. And so that's what we actually eventually have, where Congress ends up removing this disability from large groups of people, because afterwards they finally came to a realization that if we're going to bar everyone who had a connection to the Confederacy, then we really won't have any representation from the South, at least amongst white Southerners at that point. And so eventually they began to remove elements of this for particular cases. But no, it eliminates them from serving in office altogether.
Now, to what extent do you think they were trying to solve an immediate problem versus look into the future and future problems?
So I think if we look at this purely on the face of the language, they are not limiting it to the rebellion that had just happened. You know, it doesn't talk about the previous war, the previous conflict. We don't see a limiting principle here or a limiting time frame for the language. And the language here is broad, and it is all-encompassing in terms of chronology. And so while they may have been writing it to deal with an immediate problem, the text itself doesn't limit it to application to that immediate environment. And so I think it'd be a mistake to say, well, this is really limiting to there. It doesn't really have anything to do with what we do now. I don't think that was the intention whatsoever.
So then, since that time period, post-Civil War, when they were resolving these issues with the Confederacy, how often has the 14th Amendment, Section 3, been discussed, applied by the courts or by anybody?
So it has very rarely been discussed or applied. Since once we got past that Civil War context where it was an immediate question, it has very rarely been applied, and it has never been applied to a potential president of the United States. And so that's really where we get to the legal issue that's bubbling up right now. But it has been discussed in relatively recent terms in relation to some people running for office who were part of the January 6th riot that took place in Washington, D.C., who wanted to run for lower levels of office. And so if you were arrested, for example, in that context and you wanted to run for office later, well, this language was brought to bear in some of those situations to decide whether or not that person had actually engaged in, as the language is here, insurrection or rebellion. And so it has been used again very, very recently, but between the Civil War and very recently, it's been pretty much ignored.
So then what do judges do? I mean, often judges look back to previous judicial decisions to evaluate current ones. It's like they have no precedent, so they're making it up now. Not making it up, but they're creating the interpretation.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, in our constitutional system, the judges have certain guardrails that they look for when they make these kinds of choices. The most obvious guardrail is the text itself. And so you look at the text. Does the text clearly resolve you? And I'm talking from a particular perspective on the text, obviously, but does the text clearly resolve the issue? If it does, then this is pretty easy. If the text doesn't clearly resolve the issue, then you look at precedent and decide how previous courts have dealt with this question, and you let that weigh on your choice. Well, in the absence of precedent and in the absence of a super clear text, this does become a matter of interpretation. And you're going to see some disagreements, even though that interpretation may exist. That interpretation is going to be the issue here. And so right now we're watching lower courts kind of flounder around on this. The Supreme Court has agreed to take it on as an issue, and hopefully they will begin to resolve it.
So what are some of the words in Section 3 that people don't totally know what they mean?
So, believe it or not, it's going to be quite a discussion to decide whether or not President Trump or anyone else may have engaged in insurrection. That's really going to be one of the key words here. Was that kind of conduct insurrection as we commonly understand it? Rebellion, the language is here insurrection or rebellion. I think rebellion we probably would put in a more violent category, like taking up arms, creating an armed conflict, creating an army. That would sort of be one thing, like we saw with the Civil War, I would argue. Insurrection is a little bit more complicated. It has a pretty strict legal meaning, but the language here doesn't necessarily say this only should be interpreted in that specifically legal context. The Constitution is also a political document that may have a little bit broader meaning than just a simple statute. And so did you engage in behavior that undermined the government itself, that frustrated the government's ability to carry out its official actions, and was your behavior sort of a direct effort to do that? That's when we get into that kind of language, we're starting to talk about what is or is not insurrection. And you can see where the events of January 6th are pretty complicated when we start to think in those terms.
And now you mentioned the Supreme Court has agreed to take up this issue. And in order for them to take up a case, it has to have appeared somewhere else. So what's the circumstances of the case they're going to be examining?
So we've had several states have kind of looked at the issue to determine whether or not President Trump should be on the ballot in light of this language. Michigan, I believe, Minnesota, California, a range of states have looked at it and said, no, we don't think it applies here. We're not willing to bar him. We're not trying to bar him from the ballot because of this language. However, Colorado and Maine have each barred the former president from appearing on the ballot because of this language. The Colorado Supreme Court went through a process and rendered a verdict and said, yep, we think it applies here. The Secretary of State in Maine went through a process and said she thinks it applies here. And so those decisions have been appealed, particularly the Colorado decision has been appealed to the United States Supreme Court by President Trump. And the Supreme Court's agreed to take it up, and we'll see oral arguments on February 8th.
So with all that in mind, again, we're not sharing opinions on this. We're just talking about what's happening. So now who gets to decide? Clearly there's dispute about whether or not President Trump should be ineligible, essentially, according to the 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
Who gets to decide?
Well, I mean, and who gets to decide is kind of the question the court's dealing with, which may sound redundant, but the court could say this is really a political matter that we think the people should decide and just say, we're not interested in barring anyone from the ballot. We're going to let the political process itself play out, and then maybe perhaps if elected, we would then take up the issue because then he would be truly considered for office at that point. The court could also say, you know what, at the end of the day, we think this is such an obvious case that it applies to him that we will decide that Section 3 applies to the former president, and therefore we will allow this barring from the ballot to take place. They could also maybe kick the can a little bit and say, well, maybe we're going to push this down to a lower court to determine exactly what insurrection is. Maybe they're going to say he would need to be convicted of insurrection, in a court of law before he would actually be considered as falling under this, although I think that would be arguable. They could also say he doesn't qualify under the language here because it doesn't specifically say President of the United States in the description. It says office or officer, not exactly President of the United States. So they might argue that the language here doesn't include the president. So it could go a lot of different directions.
But if I'm right, whatever they decide, that's it. Like there's nothing more one could do once they make a decision.
And at the end of the day, their interpretation is going to be authoritative, at that point. And so they could revisit it in the future. They could certainly overturn themselves, as we've seen the court do on many occasions. But once they make a choice, that'll be the choice. And this will be the most important election case probably since Bush versus Gore back in 2000, when the court weighed in to end the recount in Florida and effectively provide those electoral votes to President Bush. And so this is a big deal. And it's, of course, the court knows that. And the court really is not usually interested in inserting itself into these kind of political disputes, but it really is unavoidable here.
And now I think largely the more important question is not, pontificating on what the answer will be or what it should be.
Right.
How do we as Christians engage in society with such a contentious issue, whether or not we think the decision should go a particular way?
Yeah, I think that as believers, we approach it by first understanding that this is really, I think this is a good faith disagreement. You know, you could see people come down on many sides of this issue with a good faith perspective, trying to be honest and have integrity and be straightforward and say, this is how I think this should land, or this is the other direction I think we should go. And so I don't view this kind of a decision as sort of a moral indicator, you know, that someone who decides that the president should or should not be barred is a moral or immoral person. This is a legitimate judgment call where we're going to have reasonable grounds for disagreement. And so, you know, I think we should bring grace into those situations and allow people to have differences of opinion when it comes to a question like that. And even then, provide it hopefully as an opportunity to engage in good dialogue with people about why they think that way and what their reasoning is, and then hopefully be loving and truthful to them in the process.
So at the end of the day, having an opinion on this is perfectly fine, but there's enough dispute that one can't assert that their opinion is the end of the matter.
I really believe that's the case, and I really believe that we're going to have differences of opinion. We should respect those differences of opinion to a degree, and I think also, depending on which way the outcome is, we maybe need to be urging some peace and caution with people that we know. You know, it could be upsetting to people because of the outcome, and you know, depending on how it goes, you could see how there'd be a significant response.
Very good. Again, Dr. Mark Caleb Smith is Dean of the School of Arts and Humanities, Professor of Political Science, and Director of the Center for Political Studies at Cedarville University. We love having him on the show. For more information about Cedarville, just go to cedarville.edu. Again, cedarville.edu. Thanks, Doc, for tiptoeing there in the, I don't know, it wasn't tulips, it was hot coals or something. But thanks for tiptoeing nonetheless.
It's always a pleasure, and I really do appreciate you and your listeners.
Thanks again, my friend. All right, it is 8:02. It's just about time for David Szfranski, president and founder of Edgewater Investment Group, to begin answering your financial questions. You can get them in right now by call or text 440-546-2255. 440-546-2255. Get on there right now, right?
Yeah, you better get on there right now on YouTube, because during this break, we're going to show a video of one of our guests that comes on often, and the first person to write in the chat who that person is gets a $10 gift card.
Ooh. So tell us who it is in that video reel going here in just a moment on our live stream on YouTube, and you could win the gift card. All right? We'll get to Dave Szfranski here after Ron's News.
Hi, Mornings with Brian team. I'm so excited for this new year and for this new chapter where you're going to be live on Facebook and YouTube. While I have a face for radio, I'm excited to join you soon.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Expressed during this program represent the opinions of the participants and is given for informational purposes only. Any information provided is not intended to replace professional advice for your specific situation.
Here he is, Dave Szfranski.
And I'll be here all week. Literally, I'll be here all week. Not here, but in Cleveland.
Oh, okay. Wow. I was going to have to break it to you. You're not going to be here all week.
I don't want to be here all week. You couldn't take me all week.
That's
True.
exactly right.
Correct. Yes. It's a big moment because it's Dave's first time in studio while we're doing a live stream on YouTube. Again, if you want to join
Wave
the
to
live
your
stream.
fans. Wave.
Hey.
Oh.
Hey, fans.
Oh,
Hey,
my God.
Fan. I mean.
Can we rewind and have him do that again?
Yeah, exactly. That was weird.
Okay. So just text the word live to 440-546-2255. Text live to 440-546-2255.
That's how you get on YouTube? You just text live?
Well, we'll send you a link.
Oh, okay. So I could go on right now. I could
watch yourself on. I don't recommend that.
It'd be like a negative loop in there. Because is there a delay on YouTube?
There's about a 30-second delay, so it's going to be kind of disorienting.
Is that for me?
Well,
That's just the way the streaming software works.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how radio works too.
Your delay is
for
over
you.
here.
Was that the grandma sweater thing she just did for me?
and now, okay, so Dave also clearly knows he's going to be on video today because he's wearing a sash. Lauren, would you like to tell folks what that says on it?
It says Mr. America. Oh,
Mr. America.
Look at you. You got the pan down.
I am America, Brian. You know that. You know that I'm America. I'm basically America in a nutshell. Right before I left for Florida, bald eagles were landing on my beach and eating fish. Why? Because they know that I'm America also.
Or just they were hungry and it was a nice
Could
place
be.
to stop. I think the most endearing thing about your status as Mr. America is that for your talent in the competition, you did baton twirling. And people were very impressed with that baton twirling. They're like, I didn't know Dave could twirl
You
a
didn't
baton
know.
like that.
It's a hidden skill. I don't talk a lot about it, but you will.
And you sang at the same time.
No.
You did. I remember. Don't minimize this. Don't be humble. It was Bette Midler's "Wind Beneath My Wings," and you were twirling a baton and telling. It was beautiful, Dave.
Yes.
So therefore, Mr. America. Okay. All that said, let's get right to your financial questions. Dave's ready to answer them. 440-546-2255.
all right. Our 19-year-old son is in his first year of college and works part-time. He attends our local community college, and we have avoided loans by paying in cash. He's accumulated $9,000 in his savings account.
Good job, buddy.
We're contemplating next steps to get his money working for him. Should he look into a higher interest savings account, or should he invest in a Roth IRA?
Well, you got to have income to do a Roth IRA. So if he has income, if he's saving $9,000, I assume he's got some income. And I do like putting some money into a Roth IRA. Now, what I don't want to do is I don't want to hamstring all of his finances because it's not exactly easy to get all your money out of a Roth IRA if you need it.
And he's a first-year college student.
Yeah, so I want to establish with him the habit of savings. Every month, no matter what, we're saving some money. And this is a great time to start because he's young. And the younger you are, the more sense it makes to do a Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA. So, yeah, I do like a Roth IRA for him. I also like a high-yield money market for him. You could get a high-yield money market. I haven't checked the rates today, but yesterday they were right around 5.4%.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good. For the first time in a long time, we could make money off of cash. That's unheard of.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, no risk. You can get the money out anytime you want. You can write a check against it if you want a checkbook, but most people don't take a checkbook anymore. They use a debit card or something like that. But those are all options available to you. And then I would have him drop out of college and go to a trade school because he's going to get a better education.
Well,
absent that, he should, I just talked to somebody yesterday. Like, well, I want to go into business. What should I do? Should I go into management? Like, no, get a degree in accounting. And, maybe minor in finance or a degree in finance with a minor in accounting because that's who gets jobs. It's people who understand numbers. If you understand how to write...
It's amazing I have a job.
It is amazing you have a job. Lauren and I were just commenting about that in the back. Another year with Brian. We thought the changes were coming. But no, not again. But that's who gets the jobs. If you can help people write out a schedule and tell people when to come to work and things like that and, and affirm them at the workplace, that's all great. But in the end, it's the people, the men and women who have accounting and finance degrees who control all the money. And so that's where people should be. If you're going into business, that's where you should be going into. Now, if you're going into basket weaving, you're going to be, you need to practice this phrase. Would you like fries with that? If there's still even people at the front counter, because the minute minimum wages went up, what did they do? They
self-checkout, self-ordering. Yeah.
Try and go to a Walmart and talk to a person while you're checking out. It's virtually impossible. And why is that? Because we demanded a $20 minimum wage in a lot of places. That's an easy equation. You go to a McDonald's. You gotta do your order on a computer. There's 4 of them standing there, and everybody for the last 20 days has touched that thing, and it's never been cleaned. Welcome to McDonald's. So
And you have to put your readers on. It's a whole thing.
Oh, wow.
it's a whole thing.
Yikes.
And so yeah, and unless you're Lauren or me, and like being an accountant sounds like a form of torture.
Oh, sounds horrific.
Well, it's not.
Like it painful.
I would get so confused just in my own brain all the time.
Listen,
all the time.
There's a lot of people who go to law school but never become a practicing attorney. So you could go to.
Sounds dumb.
You could get. It's not dumb because it opens opportunities for you, and that's what a degree in accounting does. It opens opportunity. You don't have to go be a CPA. You don't have to do people's taxes for a living. And I know people that are CEOs that have a degree in accounting. I know people at the highest levels of corporate life that they have a degree in accounting. They understand the numbers. If you want to be good at business, you got to understand the numbers, and that's how you do it.
No wonder I'm bad at business. All right, 440-546-2255. What do we got next, Lauren?
Is it too late to buy government bonds? Not a good return.
It's not too late to buy government bonds, and I'm going to explain this to you as simply as I can, and Brian's going to laugh at me.
If I can keep up, we'll see.
Right.
So, when I was a kid, Brian, we had these things in playgrounds.
Wait, a long time ago. Okay, hold on.
In a galaxy far, far away.
Okay, I'm there.
We had teeter-totters.
Oh, don't talk like that. You're tempting me.
Teeter-totters.
Do you hear the way he said that?
Yeah.
He does it on purpose. Teeter-twatter.
Oh.
Teeter-totter. The thing is, I graduated high school at 130 pounds.
Okay.
So if Fat Tony was a friend of mine, that was his nickname.
Okay.
If he was on the teeter-totter, I was stuck at the top.
Sure.
I wasn't getting that. But think of this with bonds. So you got interest rates on one side, and you got the value of your bond on the other side. Now, interest rates are still relatively high, and as they come down, the value of your bond goes up on the other side. So a lot of people think, and I'm one of them, that the Federal Reserve and my friend Chair Powell is going to cut rates next year at least a couple of times. And the market is going to bring down rates also. So the value of your bond will go up. Now, I happen to like short-term bonds the best because they pay the most right now. But it's not too late to buy a government bond because you're getting an interest rate and you're also going to get some capital gains if you want it. So it's not too late. I'm being very picky on how I buy them right now. And I do think rates are going to go back up. They were just over 4% yesterday. They're a little under 4% today. But I think they're going back up to 4.25% short term or for the 10-year. And that's when I'll start buying some long bonds again. So you got to be choosy.
And choosy moms choose Jif.
Yes, exactly.
You ever heard that? Sorry, I was totally not listening to you. 8:19, time for a quick break. More Dave Szfranski questions, financial related. You got them? Text them or call them in. 440-546-2255. 440-546-2255.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
$8:21. Again, we're on the live stream. You can find out what that is.
Dave's dancing.
And
That's a hip intro.
I'd recommend just covering Dave's little square when he dances so you're not traumatized. But just if you want to see it, text live to 440-546-2255.
Sorry, Brian.
Also, there was discussion in the studio about, since we have Walkworthy Men's Conference coming up on Saturday, March 2nd, Canton Baptist Temple featuring Nick Gatsky and Mark Jobe. I think somebody was like, oh, does Dave ever go to that?
Yeah, I do. I didn't go last year because I was out of town. And I just have to look at my schedule, see what's going on this year. But I'll probably be in town.
A couple of years ago, you had
Put it on your calendar right now.
Yeah, what are you doing?
What do you mean?
Out your calendar.
Look at your schedule. Pull out your phone. Put it on your calendar.
Oh my gosh!
Wait, where's your
coming
phone?
at me? There's arrows coming from every direction.
You're on video.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Look it up.
There's every.
Do we have to call your
What
assistant?
do you mean?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Call my people, and they'll talk to you. Maybe.
What do you?
Well, Lauren, you call my people. They won't talk to Brian.
Your wife's still going to be gone. So what do you got going on? Nothing.
I'm looking. I'm foraging for food. That's what I'm doing.
He's out getting foraging.
We serve
looking
lunch
for berries.
Yeah, we got Chick-fil-A. So
Oh, yeah.
breakfast and lunch. So that's 2 meals you don't have to think about.
And maybe your fan club will be there. There was a couple of years ago where a group of college men studying, they were huge nerds, studying economics.
Yeah.
It's cute.
And they were like, can we meet Dave? I'd like
It's
to meet Dave.
nice.
And
Will he shine our pocket protector? He definitely will.
So, Dave, I'd recommend you do this as well. Text WALK to 440-546-2255. Text WALK, and we'll send you a link to get your tickets today. Again, Saturday, March 2nd, Canton Baptist Temple. Dave might be there.
I'm going to try and be there.
There is
This
no
guy.
try.
And
There
if you
is do
stay
or do
late
not.
and help us clean up, then you get to take more Chick-fil-A. So then you have all 3 meals for the day. So I don't know
There you
what you're
go.
doing.
You get breakfast and lunch at
Yes.
the Walkworthy?
Yes.
What's continental breakfast?
Pastries and fruits.
What exactly does that mean?
Pastries and fruits.
Oh,
Yeah.
any bacon?
No.
This is one of the reasons why I love Brazil. I mean, I go there all the time, but
Why?
they have done. When you go to a hotel in Brazil, they lay it out. I mean, it is crazy how much food you could eat at breakfast, just as part of your room. It's not a great country. It's a socialist country, and they're working on that. But there's no place like America. This is the last
Working on
vestige
it.
of hope in the world.
But they have great breakfast.
But they have great breakfast.
So they got that going for
Yes,
us.
they do.
Okay, next
All right.
financial question.
Would you explain how a widespread pension works? My friend currently draws on her own Social Security, which has WEP taken out. It is likely her husband will pass first. Since his Social Security is higher than hers, she wants to maximize her benefits. What should she do or consider?
Well, usually the men die first because women basically kill us.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Not with
Go ahead.
kindness.
Do so. Throw it at him.
Wrong.
Just, did you do this? Did you do that? I'm like, oh my gosh, I just got home, honey. You know, I'm already expected to paint like 3 bedrooms. I got home yesterday.
You haven't spent as much time with Lauren and Daria as I have. I'm just going to sit here quietly and duck.
She's jotting down notes. No, it is true that men tend to die first, just from, if you look at actuarial tables, we just don't live as long, probably because we do dumb things.
And we work so hard loving our wives, it just wears us
We
out.
work so hard loving our wives. But, you know, one of the things, I missed one part of that where they talked about a spread.
Yeah, she meant widow's pension. She texted in.
A widow's pension. A widow's pension. Okay, so a widow's, what it would be, so what they've done, if he's taking a pension, she's got a joint life survivor option on that pension. And I think what I would be doing is I would want to be saving up as much money as I could to put into an account where I could draw income on it after he's gone so I could get closer to that monthly number that they need. And it's very important. People in retirement, I think, underestimate this frequently, is that when you're getting close to retirement, you have to know what it costs you to live. And I know a lot of people, especially as kids leave and, you know, maybe their house is paid off, they don't always pay as much attention to that monthly number. And like, you got to know these numbers. I tell people that number is critical to you and to me because I have to know if I can provide you with the income to live. And they've got to know these numbers to a T. It's got to be something that they look at frequently. And as my own wife retired and we started going through this process ourselves, you know, it's one thing to tell people what to do. It's another thing to do it yourself. And it was a little eye-opening for me because I've always had this appreciation for the decisions that we have to make. They're big, and some of them are permanent. You know, you take a pension and you cash the first check, you're not changing that. That's the way it is. So you're going to live on that. And it gave me, I think, a greater appreciation to what retired people. Now, I'm never going to retire. I'm 45-ish. I got a long time to go. I take such good care of myself. I could live to be 170.
And he also won Mr. Humble award.
That's my favorite quality about myself, my humbleness. So
I'm not surprised.
Yes. And so I think I want to know I need to know that they know their monthly number and that we could be saving some money to put into an account where we could whittle down to get her to their budgeted monthly number. That's how I would approach that.
I have a good amount of money in the savings account earning nothing. How much of a balance should I keep? I want to invest a chunk of it. I have no debt. A house and car are paid off.
I like 3 to 6 months of my have-to bills in a savings account, and I would even put that in a high-yield money market because there's no risk.
And you can get access to it immediately, right?
Anytime. You could have a debit card attached to it. You could use a almost like a credit debit card. You know how you go and they ask if you want to use a debit or a credit on the same card. Well, you could do that with some money markets.
So then why even have a savings account? Because you can earn 5% on a money market. I mean, what's the point of a savings account?
Brian, that's a good question.
Really?
You know what? Here is the purpose of a savings account. It's a place where a bank can give you a convenient holding tank and give you nothing for it. It's in the bank's best interest that you have a savings account with them because it's a loanable asset. So they're paying you 0.5%. And then you go to them and you say, you know what? I think I'd like a car loan. And like, Brian, we got the perfect car loan for you. 9.5%. It's really good for you. But they're paying you 0.5%. So the spread on that car loan for them is 9%. You've just officially entered the Christmas card list for them. They're going to love you. They want you to keep that loan forever. Don't pay it off early. This will help your credit. They tell you things like that.
They give you like 1 penny.
Yes.
They used to give you like a toaster,
and a 1099, so you got to report it on your taxes. So it doesn't make sense to have a 0 or 0.5% savings account. The thing is we've done this for so long because money has been cheap for so long that you couldn't really make money on cash anywhere. Well, now that's changed, and we got to change with it. So get with the times, Brian. Ditch that savings account.
The times passed me long ago.
I know.
And so ditching them is just out of the question. 440-546-2255. What's up next, Lauren?
Dave, I have a bachelor's, majored in accounting and marketing. I have 15 years experience, but not in accounting. How do I transition back to a numbers job this late in my career?
Well, the first thing that I would do is I would go back to school. I would take a few refresher courses and maybe start your master's. And so you could show an employer that you're bettering yourself. And I think you got to get and stay educated. It's one of my 9 financial mistakes to avoid is getting your education and never doing anything else with it.
You actually have 9?
I got 9 financial mistakes to avoid.
You couldn't come up with one more to make it 10?
I thought it was a little catchy to do 9. Like,
okay.
9.
It is. I like that. Yeah, nice.
I mean, I'm not going to make something up just to make it sound good, Brian. The things that I have to say have power.
Okay.
And they're powerful.
Okay, so one of your 9 is, again,
get and stay educated. You got to avoid the trap of just getting your degree and then walking off into the sunset because the people that are coming behind you, I see this with football players every year. So you got a football player that was drafted high, first round. 3 years in, everybody's younger than him. They're all trying to take his job. They're faster. They're bigger. These people have to stay trained constantly. And in the same way, we have to keep our education trained and growing every year because the people that are coming after you, they're more skilled. They've got more access to technology. They've got fresh learning and they're cheaper, by the way, too. So you've got to get and stay educated. Don't fall into that trap. Go back to school, take some refresher courses, start your master's, put it on your resume and get it out there.
You taking notes, Lauren?
No.
You're not ready to go back to school?
Oh, no.
And she was taking
Pass.
notes when I said women kill their husbands.
No, I'm writing down people's names in order of when they ask questions.
I don't know what that note was, like kill Dave in parking lot or something.
But all right, so you heard it from Dave. He's got 9 things, and we heard one of them. Exciting. 8:31, time for a quick break. When we come back, more of your financial questions. And you can text or call in at 440-546-2255. Okay, 8:35, time to get your financial questions answered. 440-546-2255. All right, what's next, Lauren?
I have a personal question.
Oh, go ahead.
Have you heard about Shohei Ohtani with the Dodgers and his deal? Did you hear about it?
Yeah.
What do you think about it? Well, hold on. Let me refresh the listener. So the Dodgers signed Shohei Ohtani. He's a pitcher and an outfielder, okay? A 10-year deal, $700 million. And he deferred $680 million until after the contract expires. So he's taking what? Some of it and then deferring the rest after
because
he's
he's
done.
going to move out of the People's Republic, the People's Communist Republic of California.
No, but why would he do? So he's going to wait 10 years to get the vast majority of the money?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
I love it. What it shows me is that people are thinking long term. You know, a lot of athletes get accused of, well, they're just going to take the money and they're going to spend it on cars and houses, which they do.
Yeah.
And that's fine because they got a lot of money. But he's thinking long term. One of the things when we're working with a baseball player right now, their schedules are so brutal. Most people could not even do the travel schedule of a baseball player, let alone sit in the sun. And I know you're going to say, oh, Dave, it sounds so tough.
Well, it's a good thing they get to stand around and sit most of the time. But anyway, carry on.
You know how hard it is for a relief pitcher to stay awake in the bullpen
I can't
for
imagine.
162 games?
Boy,
I mean,
poor guy. Can we have a
I
moment of
knew
silence
it.
for him?
I just won $10. I bet myself $10 you were going to say that.
Myself.
Now I'm out $10, but I made $10. So I love the fact that he's thinking long term, because what's going to happen is he's going to play for 10 years, and he may still be playing after 10 years because he's a pitcher, a left-handed pitcher. So at some point in time, he's going to have Tommy John surgery, which pitchers love because they can throw harder after it. And then he may be playing in Texas where there is no state income tax. If he took that $700 million in California, he's going to lose 60% of it. The state income tax in California is 14%. And what are they doing with it? They're paying for health care for people who are not even citizens.
So he wouldn't have to pay a California state tax, even though it's coming from the Dodgers?
Yeah, you pay the tax where you're domiciled. So if you live in Florida, the free state of Florida, there's no state income tax.
Wow.
If you live in Texas, there's no state
He said,
income
I'm
tax.
going to Texas. He said, I'm going to take my money and go to Texas.
That's right. That's what he's going to do.
Oh, smart.
He is smart. And as a financial advisor probably told him, you're not going to live off of $700 million.
Yeah, you don't need it right now.
Yeah, you don't need it right now. This is long-term money. Don't take it right now. Defer it. Move out of California. A lot of people are moving out of California. It's strange there. And it's hard there.
And when you're an athlete, you get meals from the organization. They feed you at the stadium or whatever. You're have doctors there, all that kind of stuff. So you're not paying for food. So
no, you're generally, if you wanted to eat 3 meals a day at the facility, you could do that.
Exactly.
And
so save it for when
you're on the
not
road,
there.
they give you a per diem anyway. So if you
save your $700 million for some other time.
In Cleveland, the baseball teams stay at La Quinta. No, I'm just kidding. The Ritz. They stay at the Ritz. They stay at the Ritz.
At the Ritz. Wow.
Yeah.
Poor guys.
I mean, it's still a hotel. You're still unpacking and packing your bag, which after a while is kind of a drag.
Well, and they're tired from not running at all, except for fleeting moments.
Well, good for Shohei.
That was wow. Thank you, Lauren, for doing that. Someone loved that. It was a lot for me. It was numbers and baseball. So 8:39. Let's get to another financial question.
That was a financial question, Brian. Sheesh, dude.
Why don't you ask him about basketball now?
You said baseball, and he just mind blanked.
It was gone.
Okay. Do you open a money market account at your regular brick and mortar bank, or is that an online banking company? If both offer, which one do you recommend?
Well, I want to do the thing that's easiest for me. I have enough hard things in my life, right?
That's my life. Philosophy.
What's the easiest thing for me to do and where I'm going to make the most money? So a lot of banks do have money markets. They're not going to really talk a lot about these because once your money comes out of a savings account and goes to a money market account, it now becomes a non-loanable asset for the bank. So it's off their balance sheet. And this drives bankers crazy. Bankers are pulling their hair out at a breakneck pace right now because money is still moving to money markets. And I just want to do what's easiest. So
me too.
All things being equal, if the rates were exactly the same and you're in your bank, that's the one I'm going to do. Now, don't pay a fee for your money market. Don't pay a commission for your money market. Don't pay a deferred fee. It should be.
There's no annual fee for a money market?
There's nothing.
Why?
There's a small, because that money market will loan money out to different people, pension funds and things like that on short-term loans.
So there's no cost to a money market?
Not the one I'm going to get. No way.
I didn't know that. I just assumed there'd be a...
Well, that's because we're used to banks. And what banks do is they essentially nickel and dime you to death. Oh, yeah, there's
Well, they do have money there, so...
A $20 fee for that for a year. Oh, there's a $5 fee. Oh, you're going to come into the branch? There's a $5 fee for that. $5, most people are going to say, what's $5? But you do that 100 times, and now you're at $200, right, Brian?
What?
Right.
440-546-2255. 440-546-2255.
Dave, it seems like inflation is higher than earnings on investment, making the money I have now worth more than it'll be in the future. Is investing really the best option, or is investing money into a side hustle a better investment? For example, if I spend $100 on a tool that earns me $200 each job, is that much better?
Well, I'm going to take issue with the major premise of the question, which is investments aren't outperforming inflation. Investing is the only thing that outperforms inflation. Your wages are down over the last 3 years because of inflation. So if you haven't created 20% more income over the last 3 years, you're losing money every year right now. And that's the reason why this administration can't get any traction on job growth and market growth and things like that, because inflation has been so confiscatory. It's punishing people right now, and that is not going to change. In fact, the CPI number that came out already probably showed that prices were up again. Prices went up 20% in some things, and they're rising slower, but they're still rising. And what people want to see is they want to see prices falling back to where they were. And I think that is not going to happen, no matter who comes next. I just don't think that we're going to get that type of deflation in the economy, and we might not even want it. So I like what he's saying, though, investing in a business, doing things like that. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think you could do both. And I would do both, because I think you need to be diversified. Invest in the market, yes, but do other things also. It's not the only game in town. And if you do have a side hustle where you can create income from, I love that option too.
Well, and let's be real clear, if we just narrow the focus, he's asking, should I get a new tool? The answer is
yes.
Yes. And I've actually tried to coach Lauren's husband, Eddie, on this.
Mm-hmm.
I gave him your philosophy, my philosophy. For every project that comes up in the house I must do.
Yes.
It requires a new tool.
Yes.
And it usually does. He just laughs at this point. But I'm not looking for a laugh, Lauren. This man needs a new tool. Eddie needs a new tool right now.
Well, it is his birthday today.
Well, no. Well, he needs a new tool for that.
Yes. That birthday is new tool anyway.
Yeah.
So
But outside of that.
rob that from. This is why men die first, by the way. Because they never get tools.
And the wrong tool causes injuries.
Sorry. This man has so many new tools, okay?
He's got a starter kit, Lauren. That doesn't count.
Starter kit? Come on.
I don't know what he has. You think I know what those are? He has so many tools, okay? And do not even get me started on his Amazon wish list. It's all tools, okay?
He's a smart man.
I like him better.
He's been doing
It's literally
projects
all tools.
with tools that are inadequate for the job, Lauren.
I don't think so.
By the way, happy birthday, Eddie.
Yep.
Yeah. Here's what Eddie needs to do is he needs to make the right answer to every question. No. So what you do is you say, you don't want me to do this wrong, do you? And you say, well, no, because no's easy to say. That's the first word that comes to most people's mind. So if you make the right answer, always no, he will have a lot of tools. Eddie, you're welcome, and thank you.
And that advice is free. That's good advice.
That's free. I'm not even charging Eddie for that.
Yeah.
But he probably just got 10 new tools out of it.
I'm sure.
I hope you're listening, Eddie. We got your back, bro.
Can someone play the disclaimer again?
Sorry. 8:45, time for a quick break. Before we get to it, though, we're doing something kind of fun here as the Walkworthy Men's Conference is coming up. Walkworthy Men's Conference, Saturday, March 2nd, Canton Baptist Temple, featuring Dr. Nick Gatsky, Dr. Mark Jobe. I'll be there. Lauren will be there. Daria, Ron. It'll be a big party of all the cool men in Northeast Ohio and a couple of ladies.
Sounds fun.
Now, we're going to give away a ticket.
Yeah, one
just
ticket.
One? You're just giving away one?
We're spreading out the love, buddy.
Well, what if somebody wants to bring a buddy?
They can buy it.
Oh,
so it's
You
essentially
get a free ticket and you got to buy the other one.
2 for 1, essentially, in that case, because you won one and then you pay for. So anyway, you carry the one, square root, you know. We're going to give away one right now. We're going to make Dave pick the winner number so
Dave.
that if people get mad, they're mad at you.
That's right. You need to pick a number between 1 and 10, and that number caller is the winner.
Okay.
So go ahead. This
Right
is when you
now?
pick. Yeah, right now.
Pick it right
7.
now. Okay, caller number 7.
Number 7 will win a ticket to The Walkworthy Men's Conference coming up Saturday, March 2nd, Canton Baptist Temple. Call right now, 440-546-2255, 440-546-2255.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Away a ticket to the Walkworthy Men's
Why are you going
Conference.
to say it like that?
A ticket?
A ticket.
Because I want to.
Okay.
Oh.
Does it sound dumb? What should I say?
Yeah, it does sound dumb.
We were giving away a ticket.
We were giving away one ticket.
Uno.
Uno.
That's a little Spanish
ticket.
lingo for you.
And we did have a winner of the Walkworthy Men's Conference ticket against Saturday, March 2nd, Canton Baptist Temple, where all the cool guys are going to be. And who was the winner?
Carrie was the winner. She was getting it for her husband.
Oh. Look at that. She's getting a ticket for her husband, and you won't buy Eddie a tool. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Hashtag
Sorry.
get Eddie some
Number
tools.
one, first
Get
of all, her
Eddie
ticket was
tools.
free. Okay. Tools are expensive. Ooh, sorry. Tools are expensive.
Depends on where you shop. It saves money in the long run.
You
The
know,
end.
Eddie, you know he doesn't want anything cheap.
Now,
Okay?
there's a greater discussion here about does he
What?
want the ticket to Walkworthy, or is he going to be nagged into going?
Carrie's husband?
Yeah.
I'm sure he wants it.
What makes you so sure?
Because
Because
Walkworthy's the best place to be.
That's right.
That's true. Okay.
Lauren ran it for years.
I know. I heard how she locked you down one time.
That's how
I locked him in a room.
The first.
I don't think I've heard this story.
No.
No,
I
I was
didn't.
actually like, you did?
No.
I wasn't like surprised by that, but I couldn't remember it.
No.
Yeah, one of the first times I met her, I was leaned over and I was like, "Hey, what would you think if I went up now on the stage and said that?" I mean, remember what it was? She goes, "No, that's a terrible idea. Don't do that."
It
I
probably
was like,
was.
"I like her. She's great."
We don't talk enough about how I also one time sent you on the stage too early.
Yeah,
that-
and Founders Week
I
is
had
a
that one.
long
That
walk.
happens.
That was mine.
And she was
That
like,
my
"All right,
bad.
go." And I just do whatever she says. And I walked out there, and everyone watched me walk out, and the band kept playing.
Mm-hmm.
I had to put my head down and walk back to the side.
Mm.
And she left. She thought it was funny.
Yoinks.
What I do
Was
is I just
everybody
kind
doing
of
this?
stand there to the side and make it look like I'm supposed to be there.
Yeah, bob your head. Yes.
Just whatever you're doing, make it look like you own the place. That's
Yep.
my advice.
There we go.
I had a good follow-up line. I went back up and got on the stage or whatever, and everyone kind of looked. I said, "Well, I hope you all enjoyed my contribution to that last song." And they,
Good,
and they
good catch. That Brian, he's a funny guy.
knee slapper that one. All right, let's get to another financial question. 440-546-2255. Dave Szfranski with us.
Where online can we look for the best money market deals if not going to a local bank?
Nerd Wallet is one place that you can go.
What'd you just call
I
me?
wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, Nerd Wallet. You know, the thing is that their money markets are pretty competitive. They understand what's going on. They want your money. I use, I know symbols in my head. I don't remember the names. So I could, I could put together a list and give it to you guys of money markets that I think would be worth investigating. And if you wanted to, and they're free. So, you know, I look for the highest yield after any expenses. And then there's some expenses in the money market. They're running it and doing all that stuff. So there's minor expenses, but no commissions, no fees, like buy-in or sell fees, no contingent deferred sales charges or anything like that. And I could put together a small list.
Any handling fees?
Shipping and handling, otherwise known as scam fees.
Right.
Yes.
All right, next one.
All right. Considering what Dave said about savings accounts has got me thinking. I have about $8,000 in my savings at my bank, which is not earning much. I also have a PayPal savings, which is earning 4.5%. So I guess I should shift everything over there. The only thing I don't like about PayPal is that it takes quite a while, like a week, to get funds transferred back into the account. What kind of return would you expect from a high-yield investment as opposed to PayPal savings?
I didn't know PayPal. So, like, your PayPal account earns interest?
Oh.
I've never
Well,
heard
they
of it.
have an account there if you're keeping cash in it. I don't like PayPal at all, actually.
Wow.
Because they are communists. And all you have to do is look at their track record of things that they've kicked off their platform. It's the same thing with like GoFundMe.
What about Venmo?
I don't know much about Venmo. I personally don't Venmo people money. I don't like doing things like that.
Well, you have to have a smartphone for that. You don't have one of those.
I have an iPhone 15, and for the
Pretty
first
sure it's rotary. I've seen it.
Oh, my.
for the
Carries
first
it around with
time
him.
in my life, I've cracked the screen.
Oh,
So I just
sad.
got it, so I'm going to get it replaced. But I just noticed today the screen is cracked.
So now you're saying don't use that. Still go to money market.
Go to a money market because you can attach it to your bank account, and the money will be there the next day. So don't use PayPal. PayPal's junk.
Okay, wow.
All right. Wow. I'm just a little. Here we go. Next one.
What would you recommend investing in for retirement being self-employed?
I would do, assuming that you have your budget and your debt's paid and no credit card debt, things like that. You have an emergency fund. So we're kind of going through this sifting process. It doesn't start with saving for retirement. It starts before that, and you got to get those steps right first. But once you do that, one of the things that you can do, assuming that you're a single member of your business, or even if you're not, but you could do a simplified employee pension plan, an SEP, people call it. It's like a super IRA, and you can save a lot of money in it. You're probably not going to hit the limits. But if you do, that's awesome because you can save a lot in a SEP. It's like 20% of your adjusted gross income can go into a SEP. I might not have that number exactly right, but it's way up there. So you're talking like $50,000, $60,000 a year you could put into a SEP if you have the income to justify it. And you could do it anywhere. I mean, anywhere. You could do it at a brokerage firm. You could do it at a bank. I personally would use an online broker or somebody like that because they're the cheapest ones to use. And if you go to a bank, they're going to try and talk you into, guess what? What are they going to talk you into, Brian?
An annuity.
An annuity. Hey, my oil is low in the car. Do you have any suggestions? Yeah, an annuity. That's basically how the discussion goes. And so that's what I would do, an SEP.
All right.
I was thinking the same thing. Go ahead. Let's try to get another one in. We got, what, a minute and a half?
I got it.
What are your thoughts on reverse mortgages?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Lauren.
I think Tom Selleck likes them, if I remember right.
He does like them. They have a place. And I have a friend that I met from the radio who kind of schooled me. He did it under the guise of taking me out for coffee. And then he said, Dave, your opinion on reverse mortgages is stupid. And I said, oh, well, thank you for the coffee.
You took a sip on the free coffee and said, do tell me more.
Yes, tell me why I'm wrong. And he did. And, you know, there is a place for him. It's not where I would start. A lot of people use it if they're low on money and they want to stay in their house, but some people use it as like a line of credit. There's a lot of things that you can do with it. And I think when you look at a reverse mortgage or any financial product, you have to look at it in the grander scope of what's going on in your finances. And is that the best thing? So some people will come to me and say, hey, I'm going to buy something and I'm going to take all my cash and do it. And I say, no, we're not going to do that because I'd rather have some debt and some cash rather than no debt and no cash. And so when you're looking at these big financial decisions, I think you got to look at it in a grand scope and see if it makes sense then. But certainly there's a place for them. It's a niche product, and it should be looked as a niche product. It's not for the masses.
Yeah, I mean, I had an elderly neighbor in Chicago that had to leave her home because
they couldn't afford it. They probably got taxed out of it.
Yeah, like they started it too soon in their life, and like just expended the whole thing out, like took all the equity or something. They couldn't afford the payment then.
It could happen. Yeah. It could happen.
All right, well, that's just about it. Again, you could see this on YouTube, our Mornings with Brian and Moody Radio Cleveland channel. Go subscribe. Is it slam that subscribe button? Is that what we tell people on YouTube?
Smash
it. Smash that subscribe button. Have your kids watch it. The kids will love it. The kids love YouTube. And if you want to reach Dave, come to us, Mornings with Brian. You could just text 440-546-2255. Dave, thanks for coming in today.
Let's do a GoFundMe account for Eddie's tools because I feel like he's suffering.
I mean, at least a prayer chain.
Or just his birthday present.
Prayer chain that costs us nothing, and then we can gossip about it.
Yeah. I mean, Lauren, guy needs a couple of tools a year
outside
of
his
birthday.
Chop saw. Get him a compound miter saw with a sliding arm.
Do you want projects done around the house, Lauren?
We got to get out of here.
The right answer has to be no, Brian. The right answer has to be no.
Eddie, we're praying for you. Happy birthday. Okay, time to go. J.D. Greer's going to preach, and we're going to get out of here. Thanks, Dave. We'll see